Welcome to this story, where we journey through the rhythmic life of a potter in a peaceful coastal village. Each day unfolds with quiet purpose, as the potter shapes clay, guided by the steady pulse of the sea and the warmth of the sun. Potter's hands press and mold the earth with deliberate care, crafting simple yet beautiful vessels for daily use. The workshop is a sanctuary of calm, where the sounds of the waves and the soft hum of the spinning wheel create a soothing melody. As the day transitions from morning to evening, time slows, and the potter reflects on the timeless dance between human hands and the earth's gifts. This story invites you to embrace the slow, mindful rhythm of creation, where peace is found in every turn of the wheel and the patient shaping of clay. Allow the quiet beauty of this life by the sea to carry you gently into a restful state, as each breath deepens, bringing you closer to the tranquility of the potter's world. Welcome to the peaceful life of a potter in a quiet coastal village, where each day begins with the soft light of dawn filtering through the wooden slats of the humble workshop. The gentle breeze carries the salty scent of the ocean and the earthiness of damp clay from the nearby riverbanks, mingling in the air as the day awakens. The horizon, painted with soft shades of pink and gold, marks the beginning of another tranquil day. The potter, an old man with steady hands and a deep connection to the land, stirs early, his movements slow and deliberate, mindful of each motion as he prepares for the day's work. The smooth, worn wheel waits patiently, its surface familiar. Under his touch, he runs his hands over the cool clay, gathering it from the stone containers lined against the wall, its texture familiar and grounding. The first piece of the day takes shape beneath his practiced fingers, each press and pull of the clay guided by years of learned experience. His eyes remain fixed on the spinning wheel, watching as the earth turns beneath his hands, shaping into a bowl, a simple, essential object for daily life. The rhythmic hum of the wheel fills the air, blending with the steady, soothing sound of waves rolling gently onto the shore just beyond the open doorway of the workshop. As the potter's hands move, his mind is free, lost in the meditative process of creation. The outside world fades, and there is only the clay, the wheel, and the endless rhythm of the sea. His thoughts wander like the breeze, soft and unhurried. The steady turning of the wheel beneath his palms mirrors the constant pulse of the ocean waves, a reminder of the unchanging cycles of life. His fingers press gently, coaxing the clay into a more refined shape, each curve and contour a mark of his careful intention. The potter takes a moment to wipe his brow, the warmth of the rising sun beginning to fill the room, mingling with the cool sea breeze that rustles the edges of the open door. He pauses for a brief moment to admire the bowl forming beneath his hands, its smooth surface now taking shape. Each object he creates tells a quiet story of the earth, transformed through patience and time into something useful and beautiful. The hours pass in a haze of slow, rhythmic work, as the potter shapes jar after jar, cup after cup, each one an extension of his quiet dedication to the craft. The workshop fills with the smell of damp earth and clay, the sunlight slanting through, the wooden beams casting soft patterns on the worn floor. Outside, the village begins to stir, the faint sounds of children playing near the shoreline and the murmur of neighbors, exchanging greetings weaving into the peaceful symphony of the day. The potter's work continues, undisturbed by the noise of the world outside. His hands are deft and practiced, moving in the rhythm of a long-learned dance, shaping the earth with care and respect. As the morning stretches into afternoon, the potter's pile of finished pieces grows, each one drawing slowly on the shelves, waiting for the next phase of its journey. The sun moves higher in the sky, casting a golden hue over the village and the sea beyond. As the waves continue their eternal dance, the potter pauses, resting his hands on the nearly completed vase, feeling the coolness of the clay and the weight of the day's work settling within him. His gaze drifts to the open door, where the ocean sparkles in the afternoon light, and the distant call of seabirds echoes in the quiet space. He takes a deep breath, letting the salt air fill his lungs, and slowly exhales, feeling a deep connection to this place, to the work, and to the natural rhythm that sustains it all. This day, like so many before it, is one of simple creation, of turning the earth into something meaningful, something that will endure. As the potter returns to his wheel, the steady hum of the turning wheel becomes a lullaby for his senses. The work continues, unhurried and patient, as the day slowly unfolds. Each motion is a continuation of the rhythm that has defined his life. The dance between hands and earth, between time and nature, forming something simple yet profound with every turn of the wheel. As the day presses on, the potter's workshop becomes a sanctuary of focus, where the world outside gradually fades away, leaving only the hum of the wheel, the soft rhythm of his hands, and the steady pulse of the ocean. The early morning glow has now softened into the warm light of midday, casting long shadows across the earthen floor as the potter continues his work. His hands, worn and calloused from years of shaping the earth, move with practiced ease, each stroke and press of the clay measured and deliberate. The air inside the workshop is thick with the scent of damp earth and the fresh, salty tang of the sea breeze that drifts through the open door, mingling with the fragrance of drying pottery that fills the room. The potter's attention is fixed on the task at hand, his movements flowing seamlessly from one step to the next, as if the clay itself guides his hands. Every bowl, jar, and cup that forms beneath his fingertips is a product of both skill and intuition, a blend of years of tradition and personal understanding of the medium. As he shapes each vessel, he reflects on the cycle of his work, a continuous loop that has remained unchanged through time. From the gathering of clay from the riverbanks to the careful shaping, drying, and firing, the process is slow, deliberate, and meditative. There is no rush in this work, only a deep connection to the rhythm of the day, the seasons, and the sea. The potter pauses briefly to wipe the sweat from his brow, his eyes momentarily lifting from the wheel to gaze out toward the shimmering horizon. The waves roll in slowly, their rhythm steady and unbroken, just as it has always been. The village, too, seems to move in a steady, peaceful flow, with the laughter of children playing by the shore, the murmurs of neighbors exchanging stories, and the occasional call of seabirds returning to their nests. Yet, within the potter's humble workshop, time seems to slow even further, as if the very air is thick with the stillness that surrounds him. His hands return to the wheel, coaxing the clay into its next form, pressing gently but firmly as he creates a new jar to hold water, a necessary object for every household, a humble yet essential creation. The process is both simple and profound, a quiet reminder that in every piece of pottery lies the labor and love of the earth, shaped by human hands to serve daily needs. As he works, the potter loses track of time, allowing the rhythm of the wheel to guide him into a deep, meditative state. His mind quiets, and his thoughts flow with the turning clay. He does not think of the past or the future, only the present moment, where every turn of the wheel brings him closer to the completion of his task. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden light that filters through the wooden slats of the workshop, creating a warm, peaceful ambience. The potter takes a moment to rest, placing his hands gently on the nearly finished bowl, feeling its smooth surface, its curves and contours shaping under his fingers. He allows himself to appreciate the beauty in the simplicity of his work, elegance of a perfectly balanced jar or the gentle curve of a well-formed bowl. These vessels, though simple in their function, hold within them the essence of his craftsmanship, each one unique and carefully made. As he continues his work, the village outside seems to be winding down for the evening. The once vibrant sounds of children playing grow quieter, and the soft murmur of the villagers' voices fades into the background. The potter's rhythm continues, steady and sure, as he molds the last of the day's clay. With each turn of the wheel, he reflects on the connections between his work and the world around him. The clay beneath his hands, gathered from the riverbanks and shaped by the earth's cycles, the sea that endlessly laps against the shore, and the village that has supported his craft for generations. All these elements come together in this humble workshop. As the evening deepens, the potter feels a quiet satisfaction settle over him. His hands, though tired, are content, having spent the day in the slow, meditative process of creation. The last piece of the day takes shape under his careful hands, and as he sets it aside to dry, he takes a moment to look around the workshop. The shelves are lined with completed pottery, each piece waiting to be fired, a testament to the quiet dedication that has shaped his life. The sun finally sets, casting a cool, tranquil light over the village and the sea beyond. The potter cleans his hands and gathers his tools, his work for the day complete. He steps outside the workshop, taking a deep breath of the cool evening air. The village is quiet now, the last sounds of the day fading as the night settles in. The potter stands at the doorway of his workshop, gazing out at the sea, feeling a deep connection to the land and the work that sustains him. This day, like every other, has passed in a quiet flow, filled with the simple, timeless rhythms of creation. And as the night begins to embrace the village, the potter knows that tomorrow will bring more of the same, the steady turning of the wheel, the shaping of the clay, and the eternal dance between human hands and the earth. He closes the door to his workshop and heads toward his small cottage, content in the quiet satisfaction that comes with a day well spent. The morning arrives softly, the first light of dawn breaking gently over the coastal village, as if in sync with the rhythm of the potter's day, which begins once again in the quiet sanctity of his workshop. The air is cool and fresh, filled with the crisp scent of the sea and the damp earth from the night's tide. The potter, still weary from the day before, feels the familiar pull of his craft, the slow, steady rhythm of the wheel awaiting his hands. He steps into the workshop, the floorboards creaking beneath his weight, and runs his fingers over the smooth surface of the wheel, now still, waiting for the touch that will set it spinning once again. The familiar tools are laid out neatly, ready to transform the soft, pliable clay into useful vessels, each one a quiet testament to the harmony between human hands and the earth. His hands, seasoned and steady, pick up the lump of clay from the shelf, cool to the touch, soft yet firm with the promise of becoming something beautiful. The potter weights his hands with water from a small basin, preparing for the task at hand. As he presses the clay onto the wheel, he is transported to a place where time slows, the world outside fades, and all that exists is the turning of the wheel, the shaping of the earth, and the rhythmic pulse of the ocean just beyond the door. The wheel begins to spin, and with each turn, the potter's fingers dance over the clay, coaxing it into shape. His focus is absolute, his movements deliberate and sure. Each pull, each press is a meditation in motion, a conversation between the potter and the clay. The simplicity of the task is deceptive, for each vessel he creates is an extension of his being, shaped not just by the force of his hands, but by the years of experience, the lessons of nature, and the understanding of the rhythm of life. His fingers caress the cool, wet surface of the clay, smoothing out any imperfections, coaxing the form to take shape. He creates a bowl first, its wide rim gently curving, designed to hold the harvest, to cradle the nourishing food of the village. Each bowl is a promise that the earth, shaped by human hands, will sustain the lives of those who use it. Next, he forms a jar, its sturdy base and wide neck perfect for storing water or herbs, necessities for everyday living. The potter's hands work with practiced ease, shaping the clay with an intuitive sense of balance and function, each piece a small yet essential part of the daily rhythm of life. Outside, the village stirs. The sounds of roosters crowing, the gentle rustling of leaves in the morning breeze, and the quiet murmur of villagers preparing for the day fill the air. The potter's workshop, however, remains a sanctuary of stillness, where time is marked only by the turning of the wheel and the steady progress of the vessels taking shape. The sun continues to climb higher, its rays casting warm light through the wooden slats of the workshop, filling the space with a gentle glow. As the potter shapes the final piece of the morning, a cup designed to hold water for the simple daily rituals of life, he pauses for a moment to admire the work he has created. There is a quiet satisfaction in the process, a deep sense of connection to the earth and to the village that relies on these simple creations. He steps back and surveys the room, the shelves now filled with bowls, jars, and cups, each one unique, yet connected by the same fundamental purpose. He feels a profound sense of gratitude for his craft, for the way it grounds him, connects him to the land, and allows him to contribute to the life of the village. After a brief pause, the potter begins to prepare the pieces for drying. The jars and bowls are placed gently on the wooden shelves, each one waiting its turn to be fired in the kiln, to undergo the transformation that will make it strong and enduring. The process is slow, deliberate, and essential. He takes care to place each piece with precision, ensuring that none are left to dry too quickly, for the heat of the sun could crack the delicate clay. The potter's mind, though still focused on the work at hand, begins to wander as the slow, meditative pace of his craft pulls him deeper into the rhythms of the village. He thinks of the villagers who will use the bowls, jars, and cups, and he knows that each piece carries within it the simple beauty of daily life. The potter knows that his work is a quiet yet essential part of the village's heartbeat, a thread in the fabric of its daily rhythm. His craft is both timeless and necessary, a bridge between the earth and the people who rely on the things he creates. As the day progresses, the potter feels the familiar pull of the sea, a call he cannot ignore. He steps outside the workshop and stands at the edge of the village, gazing out over the shimmering horizon. The waves crash rhythmically on the shore, their steady rhythm a reminder of nature's constant presence. The village, too, seems to move in rhythm, with the ebb and flow of daily tasks, fishermen preparing their boats, women gathering herbs and vegetables from their gardens, and children playing near the water. The potter smiles quietly, knowing that his work, though humble, is a part of this flow. The rhythm of the wheel, the shaping of the earth, is just one piece of the larger cycle that binds the village together. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, casting golden light across the village, the potter returns to his workshop to complete the final steps of his day's work. He cleans his hands and sets the tools aside, his work now done. The pieces are drying slowly, ready for the next stage of the process. He steps outside, breathing deeply of the cool evening air. The village is quiet now, the sounds of the day fading into the stillness of night. The potter looks up at the sky, the first stars beginning to appear in the darkening heavens. As he walks back to his small cottage, he feels a deep sense of contentment, knowing that another day has passed in the quiet rhythm of creation. Tomorrow will bring more work, more shaping, more of the same, but the potter knows that each day is a small piece of a much larger whole, and in that there is profound peace. As the village settles into the stillness of night, the potter prepares for rest, content in the knowledge that his work, though simple, is essential to the life of the village. The wheel will turn again tomorrow, and the shaping of clay will continue, as it has for countless generations. The day begins once again in the potter's workshop, where the steady hum of the spinning wheel calls to him like an old friend. The cool morning air filters in through the open door, bringing with it the crisp scent of the sea and the earthy fragrance of the damp clay that waits patiently on the shelves. The potter steps into the workshop, the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet greeting him, as if welcoming him back to his sacred space. His fingers trace the worn edges of the wheel, a tool that has been the foundation of his craft for years, its surface smoothed by the thousands of rotations it has undergone. The sun rises slowly, casting its soft golden light through the wooden slats, and the potter feels a sense of peace settle over him as he begins his work. He picks up a fresh lump of clay, its cool surface grounding him in the present moment. He weights his hands with water from the small basin beside the wheel, preparing the clay for the slow and deliberate shaping that will soon take place. As he presses the clay onto the wheel, he feels the familiar rhythm begin to form beneath his fingertips. The wheel turns, and with each revolution, the clay begins to yield to the pressure of his hands, slowly taking shape into the vessel he has in mind. Each piece of clay is a potential waiting to be realized, a raw material that, under the potter's skillful touch, will become a functional work of art. He presses and pulls, his fingers moving in a graceful dance over the clay, coaxing it into the form he envisions. It is a slow process, each movement deliberate, each gesture infused with intention. The potter's hands, strong and steady, form the clay into a simple bowl, its smooth curve forming as the wheel turns in sync with his movements. He shapes the lip of the bowl with care, ensuring it will hold whatever it is meant to hold: food, water, or perhaps even the simple joy of the person who will use it. As the wheel spins, the potter feels a deep connection to the clay, a bond that stretches back through generations of artisans who have worked with the same earth, creating objects that have served their communities for centuries. The rhythm of his hands, the steady turning of the wheel, the soft sounds of the ocean in the distance, all of these things combine into a quiet symphony that grounds him in the task at hand. Outside, the village stirs to life, the soft murmur of voices and the distant sounds of children playing by the shore filtering into the workshop. The potter, however, remains focused, lost in the steady rhythm of his craft. He pulls the clay upward, shaping the sides of the bowl with delicate precision, smoothing the surface to perfection. Each movement is a meditation, a quiet reflection on the passage of time and the connection between the potter, the earth, and the community he serves. As the bowl takes shape, he begins to think of the person who will use it, perhaps a woman gathering food for her family, or a fisherman returning from the sea with fresh catch. The potter knows that his work, though humble, plays a small but important role in the fabric of daily life in the village. The bowl will be filled with nourishment, passed between hands, and eventually, after years of use, it will be returned to the earth in one way or another. But for now, it is a vessel of beauty and function, a testament to the slow, steady process of creation. Once the bowl is finished, the potter sets it aside to dry, gently placing it on a wooden shelf where it will rest until it is ready for the kiln. He takes a moment to look over the workshop, where other pieces are drying, their shapes taking form, waiting for their turn in the fire that will give them strength and permanence. The sunlight continues to filter in, casting soft shadows on the earthen floor, and the potter feels a deep sense of satisfaction in the simplicity of his work. It is a quiet life, but it is one filled with purpose. The work is slow, deliberate, and often solitary, but it is also profoundly fulfilling. The potter knows that each piece he creates contributes to the rhythm of the village, providing tools for daily life, but also offering a bit of beauty and artistry to the world around him. He takes a deep breath and steps back, admiring the vessels he has shaped over the years. Each piece tells its own story, a quiet testament to the patience and dedication of the potter's hands. As the day progresses, the potter continues to shape and mold the clay, the steady rhythm of his work never faltering. Outside, the village begins to wind down, the sounds of children's laughter fading into the soft murmur of the evening breeze. The sun begins its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, and the potter knows that the day is nearing its end. He finishes his work, cleaning his tools and preparing the workshop for the next day. As the light outside fades, he steps outside, feeling the cool evening air wash over him. The village is quiet now, the last remnants of daylight giving way to the stillness of night. The potter takes a moment to stand at the edge of the workshop, gazing out over the sea, the waves gently lapping at the shore. The steady rhythm of the waves mirrors the rhythm of his work, a constant, unhurried pulse that anchors him to the earth. The potter breathes deeply, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. He knows that tomorrow the wheel will turn again, the clay will yield to his hands, and the cycle of creation will continue. But for now, he is content in the quiet, knowing that his work, though simple, is a part of something much larger than himself. As the stars begin to twinkle in the darkening sky, the potter returns to his home, ready for rest, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of shaping, another day of creating, and another day of connecting with the earth, the clay, and the village that he serves. The quiet rhythm of the potter's work, like the heartbeat of the village itself, will continue. The potter steps into his workshop once again, his heart steady and his mind clear, ready to embrace the day's work. As the sun begins to rise over the horizon, the soft light filters through the wooden slats of the door, casting long shadows across the workshop floor. The air is cool, carrying the scent of salt from the sea and the faint fragrance of damp earth, reminders of the world outside the humble space he has come to call his own. His fingers instinctively reach for the familiar tools that rest on the komi, worn wooden table tools that have shaped countless pieces of clay over the years, each one bearing the quiet mark of his craftsmanship. He picks up a ball of clay, cool and firm in his hands, and places it gently in the center of the wheel. He weights his hands with water from the small basin next to him, the coolness of it grounding him further in the present moment. The wheel begins to spin beneath his hands, its steady hum filling the quiet workshop as he guides the clay into shape. He feels the weight of the earth in his palms, the subtle pull of the clay as it begins to yield to his will. The wheel spins faster, and with each revolution, the clay rises and falls in a delicate dance, molding itself to his touch. The potter's hands move with a fluidity born of years of practice pressing, pulling, shaping, and smoothing the surface of the clay, coaxing it into the form he envisions. The motion is slow but deliberate, a quiet mastery that reflects not only his skill, but his deep connection to the craft. Each piece he creates is more than just a vessel. It is a reflection of his patience, his dedication, and his quiet reverence for the earth and its gifts. As the clay takes shape, the potter becomes absorbed in the process, his mind quieting, his focus narrowing to the steady rhythm of the wheel and the feel of the clay beneath his fingertips. He shapes a bowl, its sides rising slowly under his guidance, the curve of it forming with a subtle elegance that speaks of his years of experience. The simplicity of the bowl is its beauty unadorned, functional, and yet full of quiet grace. The potter finishes shaping it, smoothing the edges carefully, and sets it aside to dry. He admires it for a moment, the soft glow of the morning light, catching its smooth surface, and then moves on to the next piece. His hands are steady, his movements fluid as he repeats the process, shaping the clay into another vessel, each piece a continuation of the rhythm that governs his work. The wheel spins, the clay yields, and the potter creates. Outside, the village begins to stir, voices rising in quiet conversation, footsteps echoing along the cobbled streets, the soft sound of children's laughter drifting in from the shore. But inside the workshop, time seems to slow, as though the very space itself is anchored in the steady flow of the potter's hands. There is no rush here, no hurry. The world outside may move quickly, but within these walls, there is only the craft, only the clay, only the rhythm of creation. The potter works through the morning, shaping bowls, cups, and jars, each one taking form under his careful hands. The sun climbs higher in the sky, casting its warm light through the workshop, illuminating the shelves lined with drying pottery. The familiar scent of damp clay fills the air, mingling with the salty freshness of the sea breeze. The potter pauses for a moment, stepping back from the wheel to admire the work he has done so far. He gazes at the pieces on the shelves, each one a quiet testament to the slow, deliberate process that has brought it into being. There is something deeply satisfying about the work he does, something that goes beyond the mere act of creation. It is the sense of connection, the connection between his hands and the earth, between his work and the lives of those who will use the vessels he makes. A bowl, a jar, a cup, they are more than just objects. They are part of the flow of daily life, part of the simple rhythms that govern the world around him. As the afternoon wears on, the potter continues his work, shaping the clay with a quiet focus, his hands moving with the ease of long practice. The rhythm of the wheel becomes a meditation, each turn bringing him deeper into a state of calm and concentration. The world outside may continue its busy march, but in the workshop there is peace. The soft murmur of the sea blends with the hum of the wheel, and the potter feels as though he is in tune with the very pulse of the earth. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the workshop, and the potter knows it is time to finish for the day. He cleans his tools and arranges the newly shaped vessels on the shelves, their smooth surfaces catching the fading light. As he steps back to survey his work, a sense of quiet satisfaction fills him. Each piece, each turn of the wheel has been an act of creation, an expression of his dedication to his craft. The rhythm of the day has come to a close, but the work is far from finished. Tomorrow, the wheel will turn again, and the potter will continue to shape the earth into vessels that will carry the simplicity and beauty of daily life. The village. Outside the workshop is growing quieter as evening falls, the sounds of the day giving way to the peaceful stillness of night. The potter takes one last look at the workshop before he steps outside, breathing in the cool evening air. The sea stretches before him, the waves lapping gently at the shore, their rhythm a quiet reminder of the constancy of nature. The potter feels a deep sense of peace as he walks back to his home, the day's work behind him and the promise of tomorrow's work ahead. His hands, still warm from the clay, rest at his sides, and he knows that he will return to the workshop again, where the wheel will spin, the clay will yield, and the quiet rhythm of creation will continue. As the sun rises over the coastal village, casting its warm light over the land, the potter returns to his workshop with the same sense of purpose that fills each day. The cool sea breeze greets him as he steps through the door, carrying with it the familiar scent of salt and the faint aroma of wet clay. The workshop is still, bathed in the soft light of early morning. The wheel waits, its worn surface ready for another day of creation. The potter takes a moment to center himself, his gaze drifting over the tools laid out before him. The tools, simple and well used, are extensions of his hands, each one playing a part in the slow, deliberate process of shaping the earth. With a practiced motion, he dips his hands into the cool basin of water beside him, the sensation grounding him, connecting him to the present moment. He picks up a lump of fresh clay, its weight cool and solid in his hands, and places it gently on the center of the wheel. He begins to spin the wheel slowly, feeling the steady hum beneath his palms. The motion is familiar, comforting, a rhythm he has followed for years. His fingers move with precision, pressing into the clay, coaxing it into shape. There is no rush, no hurry, only the quiet dance of hands and earth. With each press of his fingers, the clay begins to take form, rising and falling with the motion of his hands, curving and smoothing into the shape he envisions. The potter's movements are fluid, practiced, each one a small part of the larger whole. The wheel spins faster, and with it, the shape of the vessel begins to take more definite form. A bowl, round and smooth, rises beneath his touch, the sides gently curving upward as his fingers guide the clay. The texture of the wet earth is both soothing and firm, yielding to the pressure of his hands, yet holding its shape with quiet strength. As the vessel takes shape, the potter's mind quiets. He is no longer thinking of the outside world, no longer aware of the passage of time. His focus is entirely on the clay, the wheel, the slow, rhythmic motion of creation. He presses and pulls, shapes, and smooths, each movement deliberate and meditative. The rhythm of the wheel, the soft resistance of the clay beneath his hands, becomes a kind of dance, a conversation between earth and artist. The world outside fades away as the potter's focus narrows to the simple, beautiful act of creation. The morning light shifts as the sun climbs higher in the sky, casting soft shadows across the workshop floor. The potter continues his work, his hands moving with the ease of years of practice, shaping the clay with steady attention. The piece before him grows steadily, each turn of the wheel bringing it closer to completion. There is no rush. There is only the gentle, unhurried process of creation, a process that, in its quiet rhythm, brings the potter a deep sense of peace. As the bowl begins to take its final shape, the potter pauses, his hands resting gently on the surface of the clay. He examines the vessel, feeling the curves with his fingertips, noting the smoothness of the surface, the perfect symmetry of the form. It is a simple bowl, unadorned, but there is beauty in its simplicity. It is a vessel for daily life, a functional piece that will be used, touched, and cared for by others. But it is also a reflection of the potter's own quiet dedication, his patience, his careful attention to detail. Each piece he creates is a testament to the time and care he puts into his craft. The bowl is complete now, ready to be set aside, to dry before it is fired in the kiln. The potter sets it carefully on the drying shelf, then turns his attention to the next lump of clay. He weights his hands again, feeling the coolness of the water as it connects into the earth once more. The process is the same, yet each piece is different, each shape unique. The wheel spins beneath his touch, and the dance of earth and hands begins again. The morning passes slowly as the potter works, each piece taking shape under his skilled hands. There is no rush. There is no pressure. Just the steady, quiet rhythm of creation. The bowls, jars, and cups take form, their simple beauty a reflection of the potter's dedication and care. The workshop fills with the sounds of the wheel, spinning, the soft scrape of tools against clay, the gentle hum of the sea beyond the walls. The potter moves with practiced ease, his hands shaping the clay into the vessels that will serve the everyday needs of the village bowls for food, jars for water, cups for drink. Each piece is functional, but also beautiful in its simplicity. As the afternoon sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting longer shadows across the workshop, the potter takes a moment to step back from his work. He looks at the vessels he has shaped throughout the day, each one a reflection of the steady rhythm of creation. The shelves are lined with drying pottery, and he feels a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his hands have played a part in creating something that will be used and appreciated by others. There is a deep sense of fulfillment in the work he does. It is not glamorous work, nor is it fast-paced or high-profile, but it is honest work, work that requires patience, skill, and a deep respect for the materials and the process. The potter knows that each vessel he creates has a purpose, a role to play in the lives of those who will use it. And that, in itself, is enough. The day draws to a close, and the potter sets his tools down, wiping the clay from his hands with a cloth. The sun is low in the sky now, casting a golden glow over the village outside. The potter steps back outside, taking a deep breath of the cool evening air. The sea stretches out before him, its waves rolling gently onto the shore, and he feels a deep sense of peace wash over him. The work is done for the day, but tomorrow the wheel will turn again, and the quiet rhythm of creation will continue. The potter knows that as long as he has clay to shape and a wheel to spin, he will continue his work slow, steady, and unhurried, always in harmony with the earth, always creating. The soft glow of dawn begins to touch the coastal village, wrapping the landscape in shades of pink and gold as the potter's hands, now familiar with the rhythm of the wheel, continue their delicate dance. Each day begins the same, but with it comes the promise of new possibilities, of clay turning into form, of earth being shaped into something purposeful. Inside the workshop, the air is thick with the scent of wet clay and the faint salty breeze that finds its way through the open door. The potter steps inside, his eyes adjusting to the soft morning light filtering through the wooden slats of the building. His fingers move, almost instinctively, toward the lump of clay resting on the wheel, the first of many pieces that will emerge from the steady turning of the wheel throughout the day. The potter takes a moment, running his fingers over the cool, smooth surface of the clay, centering it before setting the wheel in motion. The hum of the wheel is gentle, comforting, a sound that fills the workshop as his hands guide the clay, coaxing it to rise, forming it into a shape that will soon serve a purpose. The potter's work is never hurried. It is a slow, meditative process, each piece taking shape in its own time. There is no rush. There is no need for urgency. The hours slip by quietly, marked only by the steady turning of the wheel and the gradual transformation of the clay under the potter's hands. As his fingers press into the clay, pulling it upward, the shape begins to form a simple bowl, deep and smooth, its curves emerging slowly from the lump of earth beneath his touch. It is the same as every other bowl, yet it is different. Each one, though similar in form, carries the unique imprint of the potter's hands, the signature of the artist. The vessel takes shape as the potter works, his movements slow and deliberate. Each turn of the wheel is like a breath, steady and calm, guiding the clay into the form it was meant to take. The potter does not think of the world outside the workshop, nor of the passage of time. All that matters is the clay beneath his hands, the wheel turning steadily, the creation of something simple yet meaningful. The morning passes in this quiet rhythm, the potter working steadily, each piece taking its place on the drawing shelf as it is completed. Jars, cups, bowls, each one crafted with the same attention, the same care. There is no distinction between them, yet each one is a reflection of the potter's dedication, his respect for the craft, and his connection to the earth from which it came. Outside, the village is waking up. The sound of children playing near the shore drifts in through the open door, mixing with the distant calls of seabirds overhead. The village is alive, but inside the workshop, time seems to slow. The potter is in his element, his hands moving with practiced ease, creating with quiet joy. The work does not tire him. It nourishes him, filling him with a deep sense of fulfillment. He knows that his work will serve those who live in the village, that his bowls will hold their food, his jars will store their water, his cups will hold their drinks during quiet moments. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his work will be part of their lives, even if only in small ways. By mid-afternoon, the workshop is filled with the scent of drying clay, the shelves lined with pieces waiting for the next step in, the process firing in the kiln. The potter stands back for a moment, surveying the work of the day. Each piece is a small testament to his patience and dedication, the steady rhythm of the wheel, marking the passing of time in small, deliberate moments. He takes a deep breath, the quiet hum of the wheel still resonating in his body, before setting to work once more. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the workshop floor. The potter slows his movements, sensing that the day is drawing to a close. Yet even as the light fades, his work continues. There is always more to do, more pieces to shape, more clay to mold. The world outside the workshop has its rhythms, its own tasks and schedules, but within these walls there is only the wheel, the clay, and the potter's hands. He feels the deep connection to the earth as he shapes each piece, the centuries of tradition that have passed down through the generations. His hands carry the history of those who have come before him, and the quiet passage of time is marked by each turn of the wheel, each press of his fingers into the clay. As the final bowl is shaped and set aside to dry, the potter stands back, his eyes lingering on the pieces he has created. The workshop is quiet now, the sound of the wheel still echoing in his mind, the steady pulse of creation fading as the day comes to an end. He wipes his hands on a cloth, taking a moment to reflect on the work he has done. It is not glamorous work, nor is it fast-paced, but it is honest, and it is enough. The potter knows that the world outside will continue to turn, that the needs of the village will carry on. But here, in the workshop, there is peace. The potter steps outside, the cool evening air greeting him as he stands on the threshold of his workshop, gazing out at the ocean that stretches before him. The waves roll in steadily, the same rhythm that guides the potter's hands, a constant, soothing presence in his life. The day is done, but tomorrow the wheel will turn again, and with it, the dance of earth and hands will continue. As the sun rises again, bathing the coastal village in soft hues of amber and gold, the potter enters his workshop, his steps deliberate and steady, as though the earth beneath him is guiding him into the rhythm of his day. The quiet hum of the spinning wheel welcomes him, the familiar sensation of its steady motion a comfort, a lullaby that calms his mind and focuses his hands. Today, like every day, will be a dance of earth and water as he shapes the soft clay into something both functional and beautiful, creating vessels that will serve the needs of his community. His hands, calloused and sure, move with practiced grace, pressing and pulling the clay, coaxing it into form. The wheel turns steadily beneath his palms, each rotation a rhythm that anchors him to the present moment, the steady beat of the day, beginning to unfold. His fingers press into the cool, pliable clay, shaping it slowly, carefully, with a touch that has been refined through years of practice. The form begins to take shape a bowl, its gentle curves rising from the wheel with each turn, each press of the potter's hands. It is a simple thing, yet it carries with it the essence of creation, the transformation of earth into something that will hold, something that will nourish, something that will serve. The potter's eyes are focused, his gaze never leaving the clay as it spins beneath his hands. He shapes the vessel with slow, deliberate movements, each one marking the passage of time, a silent acknowledgement of the hours that slip by unnoticed. There is no rush, no urgency, only the quiet determination to create something lasting, something that will outlive the potter himself. The rhythm of the wheel is soothing, its hum filling the workshop and mingling with the distant sounds of the village waking up, the murmur of voices, the soft clatter of pots and pans, the occasional call of a seabird overhead. Outside, the ocean waves continue their endless dance, rolling in and out in time with the turning wheel. The potter can feel the connection between his work and the natural world around him, the earth that provides the clay, the water that softens it, the air that carries the scent of the sea, and the rhythm of the waves that mirrors the turning of the wheel. This is the rhythm of his life, the rhythm of creation. His fingers work with the clay as though they are part of the earth itself, shaping and molding it with a tenderness that speaks of a deep, abiding respect for the materials he works with. He moves with the clay, his body swaying slightly as he coaxes it into form. There is no need for words, no need for thoughts, only the dance of his hands and the clay, the dance of earth and water, of creation and transformation. As the bowl begins to take shape, the potter can feel the weight of it, the promise of what it will become, a vessel for holding food, for carrying water, for storing the essentials of daily life. Each piece, though similar to the next, is unique, its shape subtly different, its surface marked by the potter's touch, by the time and care he has invested in its creation. The workshop is filled with the smell of damp clay, the scent of the earth that has been shaped by human hands. The potter steps back, admiring the bowl as it takes form, its curves smooth and flowing, its base firm and solid. He places it on the shelf to dry, and then reaches for another lump of clay, ready to begin the process again. This is the rhythm of his work, the cycle of creation that marks each day. As the day progresses, the potter moves from one piece to the next, his hands working tirelessly, shaping bowls, jars, and cups with the same care and attention. The wheel spins, the clay rises, and the workshop fills with the quiet hum of the potter's labor. The light shifts as the afternoon wanes, casting long shadows across the floor and adding a golden warmth to the space. The potter pauses briefly to wipe his brow, the coolness of the clay against his skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of the workshop. He steps outside for a moment, allowing the fresh sea breeze to cool him. The village is quieter now, the sounds of children's laughter replaced by the murmur of evening conversations as families gather for dinner. The potter takes a deep breath, feeling the salt in the air, the steady rhythm of the waves, the warmth of the sun still lingering on his skin. He returns to his workshop, where the wheel awaits, its gentle hum calling him back to his work. There is always more to do, more bowls to shape, more jars to create, more cups to form. The rhythm of the wheel continues, a constant companion in his life, a reminder of the passage of time, of the work that sustains him and his community. The light dims further as evening falls, and the potter slows his pace, the steady turn of the wheel now becoming a meditative motion. His hands, though tired, continue their work with the same care and precision, shaping the clay into the vessels that will serve a simple yet important purpose. The potter feels the connection between himself and the earth, between the work of his hands and the world around him. The wheel turns and the clay rises, and for a moment, everything else fades away. There is only the work, the rhythm of creation, the steady hum of the wheel, and the potter's hands shaping the earth. As the last piece of the day is shaped and placed on the drying shelf, the potter steps back, taking a moment to admire his work. The workshop is quiet now, the only sound the soft rush of the waves outside and the faint whisper of the wind through the open door. The potter feels a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that his work will serve the needs of his community, that his hands have created something useful, something lasting. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin again. The wheel will turn, the clay will be shaped, and the dance of earth and water will continue. The air is cool as dawn breaks over the village, the soft hues of the early morning sky mingling with the faint scent of damp earth and salty ocean breeze that seeps into the potter's workshop through the open door. The soft, rhythmic hum of the spinning wheel welcomes the potter as he enters, his hands already eager to begin the work that has become as much a part of him as the clay he shapes. He pauses briefly, his eyes scanning the shelves lined with drying pottery, each piece a testament to the hours of quiet labor he has invested in his craft. His hands, calloused and sure, rest for a moment on the smooth surface of the wheel as though gathering strength for the day ahead. There is no rush, no urgency, just the steady, unbroken rhythm of creation that has become the heartbeat of his world. The wheel turns, and the potter's hands move, pressing, pulling, coaxing the cool, pliable clay into form. It is a slow process, a dance between the potter and the earth, each turn of the wheel bringing the clay closer to its intended shape. The vessel takes form, another bowl, another jar, each one a mirror of the last, and yet each one unique, shaped by the subtle differences in the potter's hands, by the time of day, by the rhythm of his breath. There is something deeply meditative about the act of shaping the clay, as though time itself slows, allowing the potter to fully inhabit the present moment. Each movement is deliberate, each press of his fingers an expression of care and respect for the material he works with. The air around him is filled with the scent of earth-damp clay, rich and fragrant, mingling with the salty breeze that carries the distant sound of waves lapping gently against the shore. The potter's mind is focused entirely on the task. At hand, the swirling motion of the wheel, the smoothness of the clay, the slow unfolding of creation. The rhythmic turning of the wheel is soothing, its hum a constant companion that anchors the potter to his work. His hands move with a grace that comes only with years of practice, pressing and pulling the clay into shape with careful, deliberate movements. There is no need for words, no need for thoughts, only the quiet, steady rhythm of creation. As the vessel takes shape, the potter steps back for a moment, admiring its curves, its symmetry, the way it seems to come alive beneath his touch. He has done this countless times, but each piece still holds a sense of wonder for him, a reminder of the magic that happens when earth and hands come together in harmony. With a small, satisfied nod, he places the completed bowl on the drying shelf and reaches for another lump of clay, ready to begin the process again. This is the nature of his craft, endless repetition, but each repetition carries with it deepening sense of mastery, a honing of skill, a deepening of the connection between the potter and his craft. As the day stretches on, the potter moves from one piece to the next, his hands working tirelessly, shaping bowls, jars, and cups with the same care and attention. The wheel spins, the clay rises, and the rhythm of the workshop continues, a constant cycle of creation that mirrors the cycles of nature. Outside, the village moves through its daily rhythms. Children's laughter echoes in the distance. The soft murmur of voices fills the air, and the occasional call of seabirds overhead punctuates the peaceful scene. Yet within the walls of the workshop, time seems to stretch and slow, marked only by the turning of the wheel, the shaping of the clay, and the steady movements of the potter's hands. The workshop is bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, its golden light filtering through the wooden slats and casting delicate patterns across the floor. The potter pauses briefly, wiping the sweat from his brow, and steps outside for a moment to breathe in the fresh sea air. The village is quiet now, the sounds of the day fading as the evening approaches. The potter feels a deep sense of peace settle over him as he takes in the familiar sights and sounds, the rolling waves, the soft rustle of sea grasses in the breeze, the distant hum of village life. For a moment, everything seems in perfect harmony, as though the potter is one with the earth, the sea, and the sky. He returns to his workshop, where the wheel continues its steady turning, waiting for him to resume his work. The potter's hands move with renewed energy, shaping the clay with the same care, the same patience, the same reverence for the process. The wheel spins, the clay rises, and once again, the dance of creation begins. The evening stretches on, and the potter continues to work, the steady hum of the wheel filling the workshop, blending with the distant murmur of the sea. The light fades, and the workshop is bathed in the warm glow of a single oil lamp, its flickering light casting long shadows across the floor. The potter steps back to admire his work, a dozen new vessels, each one shaped with the same care, the same attention to detail, the same quiet dedication. It is a simple craft, but in its simplicity there is a profound beauty, a timelessness that resonates deeply within the potter's heart. He breathes deeply, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that his work will serve the needs of his community, that his hands have created something lasting. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin again, the wheel will turn, the clay will be shaped, and the dance of earth and water will continue. But for now, the potter rests, his mind at ease, knowing that his day's work is done, and that in the quiet hours ahead, the rhythm of the wheel will continue in his dreams, a lullaby that carries him into peaceful sleep. As the first light of dawn spills across the coastal village, a golden warmth begins to fill the potter's workshop, casting long shadows that stretch across the earthen floor, creating an almost magical atmosphere of calm. The gentle breeze from the sea enters through the open door, carrying with it the salty tongue of the ocean air, a constant reminder of the land's intimate connection with the sea. The potter's hands move almost instinctively, guided by years of experience, as he prepares the wheel for another day of work. There is no rush, no hurry, just the steady, almost meditative rhythm of his movements as he sets the clay on the wheel and begins to shape it. His fingers press into the soft, cool surface of the earth, coaxing it gently into a new form, new purpose. It is an act of creation, simple yet profound, and as he works, he feels the calming rhythm of the wheel, the gentle pulse of the earth beneath his hands. It is as though time itself slows down in this small, humble space where each turn of the wheel, each press of the clay, is a step deeper into a world of quiet beauty and peaceful creation. The potter's mind is clear, his thoughts flowing freely with the rhythm of the wheel, the sound of the sea mingling with the hum of the workshop. Each movement is deliberate and measured, and the potter takes great care in shaping the clay, not rushing it, allowing it to slowly take form under his steady hands. He is in no rush. There is no need to hurry. The craft is about patience, about the quiet acceptance of time as it passes, and the potter understands this intimately. His hands, weathered from years of labor, move with practiced ease, shaping the clay into the form he envisions. The bowl, the jar, the cup, each piece is a reflection of his craftsmanship, a tangible representation of the relationship between earth and hands. He can feel the rhythm of his own breath matching the turning of the wheel, the steady pace of his body synced with the turning earth beneath his palms. The sea, a mere breath away, speaks to him in its own steady rhythm, the waves crashing against the shore, the tides coming and going in a never-ending cycle. It is a rhythm that the potter knows well, for it mirrors the rhythm of his own work, his own life. The sound of the ocean calls to him, a song of constant motion, of eternal return, of waves that shape the earth just as his hands shape the clay. The potter pauses for a moment, lifting his gaze toward the open door of the workshop. Beyond, the sea stretches out, endless and vast, a reminder of the infinite cycles of nature that he is a part of. The waves roll in with their soothing murmur, bringing with them the promise of another day. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the leaves of nearby trees, carrying the scent of the sea and the earth. The potter's heart beats in time with this natural rhythm, and as he returns his focus to the wheel, he feels a deep connection to everything around him, the earth, the water, the sky. It is a connection that transcends the work he does. It is a connection to something deeper, something timeless. His hands move again, and the bowl takes shape, smooth and round, its edges defined with precision. There is a quiet joy in the act of creation, a joy that comes not from haste, but from the simple, steady progress of each moment. The potter works with no expectation, only with a sense of peace and satisfaction in the process itself. He does not seek perfection, for perfection is an illusion, a fleeting idea that shifts with the light of each passing day. Instead, he seeks harmony, the harmony between hands and earth, between body and spirit, between the natural world and the life he has chosen to live. The bowl is complete now, its form beautiful in its simplicity. The potter steps back and admires it for a moment before setting it aside to dry. There is a sense of quiet pride in his work, but it is not the pride of achievement. It is the pride of knowing that he has been part of a timeless process, that his hands have shaped something that will serve a purpose, that will become part of someone's daily life. And in that, there is fulfillment. The air in the workshop is still, the wheel quiet, the potter's hands resting as he reflects on the morning's work. The sea continues its rhythm, rolling in and out, its sounds carrying on the breeze. A village, too, is waking, the soft murmur of voices growing louder as neighbors greet each other, the sound of children's laughter filtering through the air. Yet within the potter's workshop, time seems to slow, stretching into eternity. Each moment is savored, each turn of the wheel a meditation. The potter's thoughts drift to the seasons, to the cycles of the earth, to the rhythm of the tides that governs not just the sea, but all things. He knows that his craft, his work, is just a small part of that greater cycle, a cycle that continues unbroken, no matter what. He understands that his hands are but one part of a much larger whole, and that in shaping the clay, he is shaping more than just a vessel. He is shaping his place in the world, his relationship to the earth, to the water, to the wind. The potter smiles softly as he gathers more clay, preparing for the next piece, knowing that the work will continue. The rhythm of the wheel and the sea will persist, and he will be here, part of it all, for as long as he is able. And so, the day continues in its slow, steady rhythm, the potter working with quiet patience, shaping the earth with his hands, listening to the song of the sea, and finding peace in the simple act of creation. The world outside may change, but here, in this humble workshop, the rhythm remains constant, peaceful, steady, and true. The light of a soft, pale morning sun filters gently through the wooden slats of the potter's workshop, casting long shadows that stretch lazily across the cool earthen floor. The steady murmur of waves reaching the shore, an ancient sound that has echoed through time itself, hums in the background, a constant reminder of nature's rhythm. Outside, the village is waking, the distant calls of seabirds rising and falling as they circle above the coastline, the soft chatter of neighbors greeting one another drifting through the still morning air. Yet inside this peaceful sanctuary, all is quiet except for the gentle turning of the wheel beneath the potter's steady hands. Each movement of his fingers is deliberate and calm, the clay yielding to the pressure as it slowly takes form beneath his touch. The potter's gaze never strays from the task at hand. His focus is complete, his mind clear, and the world outside the workshop feels distant, as though the rhythm of the wheel has placed him in a space apart from the bustle of daily life. There is no rush in his work, no urgency. The potter knows that creation, in its truest form, cannot be hurried. The clay must be shaped with care, each press of the fingers a quiet meditation in motion. His hands move with practiced ease, shaping the earth, coaxing it into its natural form, allowing it to find its purpose without force or strain. With each turn of the wheel, he feels a deep connection to the clay, to the land, and to the sea just beyond the open door of the workshop. The cycle of the tides, the ebb and flow of the ocean, mirrors the movement of the wheel, as constant and unchanging as the rhythms of nature itself. There is something profoundly grounding about it, something that speaks to the deepest parts of the potter's soul. The steady hum of the wheel beneath his hands, the slow, deliberate turning, is a song that fills the air, filling him with a quiet sense of peace and purpose. The work is not done in pursuit of fame or fortune, but in quiet dedication to a craft that has been passed down through generations. A bond between the potter and his ancestors, who also worked the land, shaped the earth, and sought solace in the rhythmic flow of creation. As the potter shapes the clay, his thoughts drift, moving along with the wheel's steady motion, and he reflects on the nature of his work. It is, in many ways, a reflection of life itself, shaping, molding, creating. With patience and care, trusting that the process will unfold as it should. There is no need for haste, for the earth will yield when the time is right. The vessels he creates are more than mere objects. They are a part of the land, a part of the life that surrounds him. They will serve their purpose, not only as tools, but as a quiet testament to the harmony between human hands and the earth's gifts. The potter's thoughts return to the clay as his fingers press gently, shaping the vessel with delicate care, coaxing it into the desired form. He can feel the clay's resistance, its coolness, and its pliability, and with each pass of his hand, he feels the piece becoming more than just raw earth. It becomes a vessel of potential, a container that will serve a function in someone's life, whether it holds food, drink, or water. Each shape, each curve, is formed with the knowledge that this small, humble creation will play a part in the rhythm of daily life, just as the potter's hands, working in harmony with the earth, play their part in the ongoing cycle of creation. The air in the workshop is still, save for the occasional rustle of the wind outside and the rhythmic sound of the potter's movements. It is a quiet space, a sacred space, where time slows down and the only thing that matters is the work at hand. The potter's heart beats in time with the turning wheel, a quiet, steady pulse that matches the rhythm of the sea, the ebb and flow of the tides that shape the land, and the life that sustains it. The wheel turns slowly beneath his hands, and the potter knows that, like the sea, his work is constant and ever-present. There is no end to it, only the steady flow of creation, the slow unfolding of each piece that will eventually find its place in the world. The potter's hands move with an almost reverent grace, each motion filled with a sense of quiet joy and satisfaction. He is not concerned with the outcome, but with the process, with the act of creation itself. It is a dance, a slow, steady rhythm that connects him to the earth, to the sea, and to the generations that have come before him. As the clay takes shape, the potter feels a deep sense of gratitude, for he knows that he is part of something much larger than himself. He is part of the ongoing flow of creation, a small, humble link in a chain that stretches back through time. And with each turn of the wheel, he adds his own chapter to this timeless story, shaping the earth with his hands, his heart, and his soul. The potter's gaze lifts for a moment, and his eyes rest on the sea just beyond the workshop door. The waves continue their steady rhythm, rolling in and out, as they have for countless generations. The wind stirs the leaves of the trees outside, carrying the scent of salt and earth into the workshop, and the potter breathes deeply, grounding himself in the peaceful presence of the moment. He returns his focus to the clay, feeling its cool surface beneath his fingers as he finishes shaping the bowl. It is done, a simple vessel that will serve its purpose in someone's home, a small but important part of daily life. And as the potter sets it aside to dry, he feels a deep sense of contentment, knowing that he has played his part in the ongoing cycle of creation, that his hands have shaped something that will serve the world in its own quiet, humble way. The sun rises higher in the sky, and the potter continues his work, each piece formed with care, patience, and love. The steady rhythm of the wheel beneath his hands, the constant murmur of the sea, and the soft breeze carrying the scent of the earth, all serve as reminders that he is part of something much larger, something timeless. And as the day unfolds, the potter knows that his work is far from over, for the cycle of creation is endless, a quiet dance that will continue for as long as the earth turns and the sea rolls in and out. The potter's hands, steady and sure, continue their work, shaping the clay, shaping the world one piece at a time. The workshop is bathed in the soft, golden light of early afternoon as the sun's rays filter gently through the wooden slats of the window. A soft breeze flows in from the open door, carrying with it the salty scent of the sea, the freshness of the earth, and the unmistakable aroma of wet clay. The air is cool and crisp, yet carries the warmth of the day's light, creating a comforting balance that wraps the potter in a tranquil embrace. His hands move steadily over the spinning wheel, pressing the cool, pliable clay, coaxing it into form with practiced ease. There is no hurry in his work, no rush to finish. The potter knows that the creation of each piece is a journey in itself, a quiet passage of time that cannot be hurried. As the wheel turns beneath his hands, the rhythm of his motions becomes a dance, one that reflects the slow, steady flow of time itself. Outside, the village is still, the distant murmur of the ocean, the only sound that interrupts the peaceful quiet. The occasional call of a seabird in flight adds its own note to the melody of the day, but within the workshop, all is calm. The potter's fingers trace the contours of the clay, shaping it with deliberate care. Each movement is measured, each press of his hands intentional, as he forms a simple bowl, a vessel that will carry the essence of the earth into the daily lives of those who will use it. The workshop is filled with the smell of wet clay and the faint scent of wood from the shells and tools. The potter's hands are strong but gentle, knowing exactly how much pressure to apply to create the perfect form. He has worked this way for years, shaping the earth with patience and care, allowing the clay to yield to his touch and become something more than mere dirt and water. It becomes something purposeful, something useful, and in that moment, the potter feels the deep connection between himself and the land. Time in the workshop moves slowly. There is no urgency, no expectations. The potter knows that the beauty of his craft is in the process, in the quiet moments of creation that unfold with each turn of the wheel. He does not think of the end result. He focuses instead on the present, on the smooth surface of the clay, beneath his fingertips, on the steady hum of the wheel, and on the rhythm of his own breathing. The passing of time feels different in this space, not marked by the ticking of clocks or the rising and setting of the sun, but by the gradual transformation of raw earth into functional art. Every bowl, jar, and cup he creates is a record of the time spent shaping it, a reflection of his patience and devotion to the craft. The potter pauses for a moment to look at the piece he has been working on. It is nearly finished, its form perfect and smooth, a testament to the quiet hours spent shaping it. He feels a deep sense of satisfaction in the piece, knowing that, like all things, it will serve a purpose in the world. It will hold water, nourish food, and carry memories of hands that carefully crafted it. As he places the nearly finished bowl on the shelf to dry, the potter turns his attention to the next piece of clay awaiting his touch. The rhythm of his movements is fluid, instinctive now, as his hands work with the clay almost as if they are one. The wheel continues its steady, spin, turning with a hum that echoes the steady pulse of the earth itself. Outside, the village has begun to quiet, the soft murmur of the day fading as the sun moves lower in the sky. The air cools slightly, and the distant sound of the sea becomes more pronounced as the tide begins to shift. The potter's thoughts wander briefly as he shapes the clay, and he is reminded of the passage of time, of the years that have passed since he first sat at this very wheel, learning the craft from those who came before him. The lessons they taught him, the steady rhythm of their hands as they shaped the earth, are etched into his memory, guiding his hands as he works. The cycle of creation is unbroken, passed from one generation to the next, each potter leaving his mark on the world, each piece a small record of the time he spent shaping it. The potter presses his hands gently into the clay, shaping it with care, knowing that this piece, like the ones before it, will carry a part of him. It will be used, touched, and admired by others, but it will also hold the quiet energy of the hours he spent creating it. The soft hum of the wheel and the steady rhythm of his hands are all that is needed to bring the piece into being. The potter's thoughts return to the present moment as he finishes shaping the vessel. He feels a quiet sense of accomplishment, knowing that each piece is a testament to his dedication and patience. The workshop is now bathed in the warm light of late afternoon, the sun's rays casting long shadows across the floor. The potter stands back for a moment, looking at the pieces he has created throughout the day, each one unique, each one a small reflection of the quiet rhythm of creation. The workshop feels timeless, as though the passing of hours is measured, not in minutes or seconds, but in the transformation of earth into form. The potter's work is never finished, but it is always rewarding. Each piece he creates is a continuation of the cycle of life, a small part of the ever-unfolding story of creation. As the sun sets and the air cools, the potter places the last piece of the day on the shelf to dry. He takes a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. The work of the day is complete, and the quiet rhythm of the workshop is replaced by the stillness of evening. The waves continue their steady pulse outside, the sounds of the village fading into the night. The potter cleans his hands, wiping away the remnants of the day's work, and for a moment he simply sits in silence, allowing himself to appreciate the flow of time, the gentle rhythm of creation, and the peace that comes from shaping the earth with his hands. As the last light of the day fades from the sky, the potter stands and walks toward the door, his heart full of gratitude for the work he has done and the time he has spent shaping the world. As the day continues its slow descent into evening, the potter finds himself once again immersed in the peaceful solitude of his workshop, a quiet space filled with the rhythmic hum of the spinning wheel and the familiar scent of damp clay. The fading light of the afternoon filters gently through the wooden slats, casting soft shadows on the walls, while the steady sound of waves breaking against the shore beyond the open door blends with the gentle spinning of the wheel. The potter's hands move with deliberate care, shaping each piece of clay with the same quiet dedication that has guided him through countless days of work. It is a craft built on patience, a skill honed over years of steady practice. And as the wheel turns beneath his hands, he feels a deep connection to the earth itself, to the land from which the clay is drawn, and the sea that constantly shifts just beyond the horizon. The workshop feels timeless, as if it exists in a space removed from the passing hours, where the only measure of time is the steady turning of the wheel and the slow, steady shaping of the clay. Outside, the village is beginning to quiet, the last few sounds of children's laughter fading into the distance, and the occasional murmur of voices from neighbors returning to their homes. But here, in the workshop, time flows differently. The potter's focus is entirely on the task at hand. He presses his hands gently into the cool clay, coaxing it into the desired shape his fingers moving with a quiet rhythm, each motion fluid and precise. There is no rush, no urgency. Each piece is formed at its own pace, shaped with love and care, knowing that it will soon become part of someone's life-holding food, water, or simply a quiet moment of reflection. The act of creation becomes a meditation, a moment of stillness. In a world that often moves too quickly, the potter's mind is clear, focused entirely on the process of creation. The simple, calming rhythm of his work is enough to quiet the noise of the world outside, to still his thoughts and ground him in the present moment. With each piece, there is a sense of satisfaction, a deep sense of connection to the land and the people who will use the vessels he creates. The wheel spins steadily beneath his hands, each rotation bringing him closer to the completion of the piece. Each turn a gentle reminder of the slow, deliberate pace at which the world should be approached. As the potter shapes the clay, he reflects on the long journey that has brought him here, to this moment, in this humble workshop by the sea. He remembers the early days, when his hands were not yet skilled, when he struggled to create pieces that were anything more than simple, misshapen lumps of clay. But with each failure, he learned. With each misstep, he grew. And now, years later, he has mastered the art of shaping the earth, of coaxing it into something beautiful and functional. The potter pauses for a moment, his hands resting lightly on a nearly finished bowl, the shape smooth and perfect. He admires his work, but only for a brief moment before turning his attention to the next piece. There is no room for complacency in the work of a potter. Each piece must be crafted with the same care and dedication as the last, no matter how many times the process is repeated. Outside, the day is beginning to wane, the last vestiges of sunlight casting long golden shadows across the village. The potter pauses again, this time to wipe his brow with the back of his hand, feeling the warmth of the day still lingering in the air. He takes a deep breath, inhaling the salty scent of the sea and the fresh, earthy aroma of the clay. For a moment, he closes his eyes, allowing the peacefulness of the moment to wash over him. There is something deeply satisfying about the simplicity of his work, the quiet dedication that each piece requires. No matter how much the world changes, no matter how fast life moves, the potter remains rooted in his craft, a steady presence in an ever-changing world. The air in the workshop is still, save for the soft hum of the wheel and the occasional rustle of the sea breeze as it filters through the open door. The potter's hands move with a sense of purpose, shaping the clay with practiced skill. Each motion is measured, each press of his fingers deliberate. As he forms the piece, his eyes fixed on the ever-evolving shape before him. There is no need for haste. The potter knows that, in his craft, every piece must be allowed to evolve at its own pace. It is not the final product that matters most, but the act of creation itself, the quiet, meditative process of shaping the earth with one's hands. As the sun begins to set and the light in the workshop dims, the potter places the last piece of the day on the drying shelf, the clay still soft and fresh. He takes a step back, admiring the collection of vessels that have been created throughout the day. Each one tells its own story, a story of patience and care, a story of time well spent. The potter knows that the work is far from over. Tomorrow, the wheel will turn again, and the process will repeat. But for now, he allows himself a moment of rest to reflect on the quiet beauty of the day and the satisfaction of a job well done. The soft sound of the waves outside continues to hum, the rhythm of the ocean, a gentle lullaby that mirrors the steady, calming rhythm of his work. In this moment, the potter is content, grounded in the simplicity of his craft and the peacefulness of the workshop. Time may continue to move forward, but here, in this space, time is measured not by the ticking of clocks, but by the turning of the wheel and the shaping of the clay. There is a quiet beauty in this, a beauty that the potter carries with him, piece by piece, through every turn of the wheel, every press of his hands. The potter's hands move in rhythmic harmony with the turning wheel, each press and pull of the clay feeling like an extension of his thoughts, a silent conversation between man and earth. In this workshop, time bends and stretches, and the world outside, the bustling village, the rushing tides, the fleeting clouds feels distant, as though separated by an invisible veil. The only reality is the present moment, the steady hum of the wheel, the soft rustling of the sea breeze that slips through the open door, and the steady flow of his hands as they shape the clay. There's a gentle peace in this solitude, an unspoken bond between the potter and the work that lies before him. Each piece of pottery, each bowl, jar, and cup is not simply a product of his skill, but a reflection of the quiet, enduring connection he feels with the earth beneath him and the world around him. It is a conversation that requires no words, only the simple, steady rhythm of his work and the soft turning of the wheel. The light in the workshop begins to shift, casting long shadows that stretch across the earthen floor, and the potter feels a familiar sense of comfort settle into his bones. The day has worn on, and yet he is not weary. This work, this dance with the clay, is a nourishment for the soul. His body knows the motions, as well as his mind knows the contours of his thoughts. The wheel spins and hums under his touch, each rotation a steady companion, a reminder of the passage of time that is measured not in hours or minutes, but in the movements of his hands and the shaping of the earth. His gaze lifts, briefly breaking from his work, to take in the shelves of drying pottery that line the walls. The vessels, each one unique, tell a story of time in patience, a moments captured in the slow shaping of clay. There are bowls, each with its own curve and indentation, cups whose rims speak of quiet mornings, and jars whose sides whisper of holding something precious. The potter looks at these pieces not with a sense of ownership, but with quiet gratitude for the time that he has shared with them, the hours spent shaping their forms. He knows that each piece is a reflection of the care he has given, a reminder that the process of creation is as much about the journey as it is about the end result. A distant call of a seabird drifts through the window, its cry sharp and clear against the soft backdrop of the workshop's stillness. The potter takes a deep breath, inhaling the familiar mix of damp clay and salt air, the scent that has come to define this space, this sanctuary of creation. His hands pause for a moment, resting gently on the nearly finished piece. The clay is smooth, cool to the touch, and he feels a deep sense of satisfaction. Each movement he makes is deliberate, each decision intentional, as though the clay is his silent companion, guiding him, responding to the gentle pressure of his hands. There is no rush, no hurry. The work will take as long as it needs. As the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, the workshop fills with the warm, golden light of late afternoon. The shadows grow longer, stretching out across the floor as if to embrace the work the potter has so lovingly shaped throughout the day. The last few rays of sunlight filter through the cracks in the wooden slats, casting a soft glow on the clay vessels that sit drying on the shelves. It is in these quiet moments that the potter feels the fullness of his work. There is no sense of urgency, no desire to hurry the process. Each day, each piece is its own reward. The potter's eyes flicker back to the spinning wheel, where a fresh lump of clay waits patiently for his touch. His hands move once more, with practiced ease, pressing, pulling, coaxing the soft earth into shape. The rhythm of his work becomes a quiet meditation, each turn of the wheel like a soft breath in the cycle of creation. Outside, the sounds of the village have quieted. The children's laughter has faded into the distance, and the neighbors have retreated into their homes. All that remains is the soft, distant murmur of the waves, and the steady hum of the potter's wheel. The workshop, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, feels more like a sanctuary than a place of work. There is peace here in the simple act of creation. The potter's work is not driven by the need for recognition or reward, but by an inner calling, a quiet dedication to his craft. He shapes the clay not because he must, but because it is a part of who he is. As he shapes the piece before him, he feels the connection between his hands, the earth, and the world beyond the walls of the workshop. He is part of something greater, something timeless. The steady rhythm of his work continues as the sun dips, lower, casting a soft, amber light across the workshop. The potter presses the last piece of clay into shape, his hands moving with the same fluidity, the same quiet dedication that has guided him through countless hours of work. He knows that the work is far from over. Tomorrow, the wheel will spin again, and new pieces will be shaped. But for now, there is a sense of completion, a quiet satisfaction in the work that has been done. The potter steps back from the wheel, admiring the piece before him, the smooth contours of the clay catching the last rays of the sun. It is a moment of stillness, of quiet reflection, before he turns to the drying shelves, where the pieces he has crafted throughout the day will soon take their place. His work is not a mere occupation, but a quiet, steady calling, a way of life. As the last light fades from the sky and the first stars appear above the village, the potter sits in the silence of his workshop, knowing that tomorrow the wheel will turn again, and with it, the quiet rhythm of creation will continue. As the morning light filters softly through the narrow wooden slats of the potter's workshop, the world outside seems to awaken slowly, with the first whispers of dawn stirring the quiet coastal village. The sea, still and serene, stretches endlessly toward the horizon, its surface reflecting the soft hues of the sky, a calming mirror to the tranquil rhythm within the workshop. The potter, standing quietly at his wheel, feels the gentle pull of time as it moves imperceptibly around him. His hands, accustomed to the delicate shaping of clay, move in their familiar pattern, guided by a quiet inner rhythm that has become second nature. Each rotation of the wheel feels like a heartbeat, steady and unhurried, syncing with the pulse of the earth beneath him and the endless ebb and flow of the ocean beyond. The day ahead holds no rush, no urgency, only the steady, rhythmic task. Oh, shaping the earth into vessels of beauty and utility. The potter's fingers, calloused and sure, press into the cool, pliable clay, coaxing it into form. The wheel turns slowly beneath his hands, its steady hum filling the air, harmonizing with the distant murmur of the waves that lap softly at the shore. Outside, the village stirs into life, the quiet murmur of neighbors greeting each other, the faint laughter of children playing near the water, and the soft squawk of seabirds as they soar above the rooftops. Yet within this humble workshop, time stretches out, almost as if it is suspended in the peaceful quiet of the potters. Work. His movements are slow and deliberate, each press of his hands a meditation, each pull of the clay a quiet conversation with the earth itself. The rhythm of the wheel turns, each revolution a small, peaceful victory in the ongoing act of creation. The potter's eyes drift briefly to the drying shelves where yesterday's creations sit, each piece a testament to patience and care. Bowls, jars, and cups that fill the shelves are more than mere objects. They are reflections of the time and care he has given to them, each one imbued with the quiet energy of his hands. As he continues to shape the clay before him, the potter feels a deep sense of connection to the earth and to the tradition that has been passed down through generations. There is a timeless quality to his work, a sense that each piece is part of something much larger than himself. It is not merely the act of creating pottery that sustains him, but the understanding that his work is a link in a chain that stretches back to the earliest potters who shape the earth with their hands. His fingers press and shape the clay with practiced ease, transforming the lump of earth into a vessel that will serve a purpose, whether for holding food, water, or simply offering a quiet moment of reflection. Each piece is unique, its shape a reflection of the potter's intent and the subtle guidance of the clay itself. The day continues to unfold outside the workshop, the sunlight shifting and casting long shadows on the floor as the hours pass. Unnoticed. But within the workshop, time moves in its own way, governed by the steady rhythm of the wheel and the quiet flow of the potter's hands. There is no hurry here, no desire to complete the work quickly or to move on to the next task. The potter is content in the moment, absorbed fully in the process of creation. His work is not a race, but a slow, deliberate unfolding, each piece taking shape in its own time. The gentle rhythm of the wheel and the smooth, cool texture of the clay are his companions, guiding him through the day, keeping him rooted in the present moment. As the afternoon light begins to fade, casting a soft golden glow across the workshop, the potter takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day's work settling into his bones. The last few pieces of pottery for the day are shaped, each one completed with the same care and attention to detail as the first. He pauses for a moment, surveying the work before him, a quiet sense of satisfaction washing over him. The pieces on the drying shelves are ready to be fired in the kiln, and the wheel is still, the day's work complete. There is no rush to move on to the next task, no pressure to begin again. The potter takes a moment to simply be, to breathe in the quiet, to feel the steady rhythm of time that has carried him through the day. The sun has now dipped below the horizon, and the first stars begin to twinkle softly in the evening sky. The village outside is quiet, the sounds of the day replaced by the soft murmur of the night. The potter looks out toward the sea, where the waves continue their endless rhythm, a reminder of the constancy and the quiet power of nature. He feels a deep sense of peace in this stillness, knowing that his work, like the rhythm of the sea, will continue, slow and steady, through the cycles of day and night. The quiet beauty of this moment, of the work that has been done, is enough. The potter takes one last look at the pieces drying on the shelves, the vessels he has created with his hands, and feels a profound connection to the earth and to the generations of potters who have come before him. He knows that this simple, quiet act of creation is a form of peace, a way of being in harmony with the world around him. And as the night settles in, the potter turns toward the quiet darkness of the village, knowing that tomorrow will bring a new day, a new cycle of creation, and the steady, comforting rhythm of the wheel will turn again. As the sun rises slowly over the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the village, the potter begins his day with the same calm and purposeful motions that have defined his craft for years. The rhythm of his work is familiar, as steady as the turning of the wheel beneath his hands. There is a quiet satisfaction in the simplicity of it all, the way each piece of clay begins as a formless lump and ends as a vessel of beauty and function. The potter's fingers glide over the smooth surface of the clay, shaping it with deliberate care, feeling the texture beneath his fingertips as the wheel turns, steady and unhurried. Outside the workshop, the sounds of the village waking up mingle with the soothing murmur of the sea, a constant backdrop to the potter's work. The children's laughter drifts on the breeze. The calls of neighbors exchanging morning greetings echo through the streets, and the occasional flutter of seabirds' wings adds a soft, melodic undertone to the atmosphere. Yet inside the workshop, the potter is alone with the clay, his hands dancing in the familiar rhythm of creation. Each pull of the clay, each turn of the wheel is an act of quiet meditation, a moment to clear his mind and center his thoughts. There is no rush here, no urgency to finish quickly. The potter knows that the work, like time itself, moves at its own pace, and that each piece of pottery has its own rhythm. It is not just the act of shaping the clay that sustains him, but the sense of connection to something larger, something ancient. The potter knows that his craft is rooted in a long tradition, passed down through generations, each of them adding their own touch to the art of shaping earth into form. As he presses his fingers gently into the soft clay, he feels the weight of history, the hands of those who came before him, guiding his own. The wheel spins steadily beneath his palms, the gentle hum of its turning blending with the distant crash of waves on the shore. The potter's mind drifts back to the old tales, stories passed down through the generations of potters, tales of ancient artisans who shaped their craft in the quiet sanctuaries of their workshops, just as he does. Now, he recalls the stories his grandmother told him of how pottery was once made by hand in every village, how each piece of pottery told a story, carried a memory of the potter's intent and care. He thinks of the old potters who worked with the same dedication he does now, their hands pressed into the clay, creating vessels that would carry the essence of daily life. These stories, like the rhythm of his wheel, continue to echo through time, passed down from one generation to the next. The potter's hands pause for a moment, resting gently on the nearly finished bowl before him. He feels the smooth surface, the curves and edges that have taken shape beneath his hands, and he is filled with a sense of quiet pride. The bowl, like all his pieces, carries a bit of his own story, his dedication, and the long tradition of those who have shaped the earth. Before him, there is a sense of peace in this work, a sense that he is part of something larger than himself, something timeless. He looks out the open doorway, toward the sea, where the waves roll in slowly, their rhythm unchanging. The endless motion of the sea is a reflection of the potter's own work, the constant turning of the wheel, the steady shaping of the clay. The sea, like the clay, is shaped by forces beyond his control, yet it too follows a rhythm, a quiet, unhurried pace. The potter feels a deep connection to the earth, to the sea, to the sky above him. He knows that his work, like the rhythms of nature, is part of a larger cycle, one that will continue long after he is gone. He feels the weight of this connection, in his bones, in the steady turning of the wheel beneath his hands. It is a comfort, this continuity, this sense that time is always moving forward, yet always anchored in the past. As the day progresses, the light shifts, casting long shadows across the workshop. The potter's hands continue their steady work, shaping bowl after bowl, jar after jar. The rhythmic hum of the wheel fills the space, a sound as constant as the waves outside. The sun moves across the sky, marking the passage of time with its shifting light. But for the potter, time seems to slow within the walls of the workshop. Here, there is no rush, no pressure to move quickly. The work moves at its own pace, shaped by the rhythm of the wheel and the steady pull of his hands. Each piece of pottery takes form in its own time, shaped by the potter's touch and the clay's response. As the evening approaches, the last pieces for the day are completed. The potter takes a moment to survey his work, his gaze moving over the bowls and jars drying on the shelves. Each piece, a small part of the day's rhythm, carries the mark of his hands, the connection between him and the earth. The sun sets, slowly casting a soft golden light over the workshop as the potter takes one last look at his work for the day. He feels a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that each piece, no matter how small, carries with it the story of the day's work, the quiet rhythm of creation. The potter cleans his hands and moves to the door, pausing for a moment to look out at the sea. The waves roll in, slow and steady, just as they always have. The night is quiet, and the potter feels the weight of the day's work lift from his shoulders. As he steps into the cool evening air, he feels a deep sense of peace, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day, another rhythm, and another chance to continue the cycle of creation. In the quiet stillness of the evening, the potter reflects on the stories of the old potters, the tales that have been passed down through generations. These stories, like the rhythm of the wheel, will continue, carried forward by the hands of those who shape the earth into form. The sun was low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the potter's workshop, as the familiar hum of the wheel filled the air. The potter, ever focused and steady, sat at his workstation, his hands deftly shaping the clay that had become an extension of himself over the years. Each turn of the wheel was a symphony, and each motion of his hands was a note in the ongoing melody of creation. The air was thick with the scent of damp clay, the earthiness of it mingling with the salty tang of the sea breeze that drifted through the open door. As he pressed his hands into the soft clay, coaxing it into shape, the potter felt an immense sense of peace, a quiet, unwavering connection to the earth beneath him and the ocean that stretched endlessly beyond his workshop. Time seemed to slow here, the rhythm of his work mirroring the rhythmic pulse of the waves that crashed softly against the shore. In this sanctuary, there was no rush, no expectation. There was only the act of creation, the patient shaping of the clay into vessels that would soon serve a purpose in the lives of others. The steady turning of the wheel, the feeling of the earth in his hands, was a meditation in itself, each piece of pottery being crafted, not only with skill, but with love, care, and deep respect for the material he worked with. As his hands moved over the clay, he remembered the first lesson he had learned as a young apprentice, that the clay was alive, in a way, and needed to be treated with kindness and patience. He was not just shaping the clay, but rather he was listening to it, understanding its nature, its pliability, and its limits. The first few years had been difficult, full of mistakes and missteps, but with each failure had come wisdom. Each cracked bowl and misshapen jar had been a lesson in patience and perseverance. Now, as he shaped the clay, he could feel the rhythm of it, the way it responded to his hands, how it softened under his touch, as though it was working with him to form something beautiful. Outside the workshop, the village was winding down. For the day, the sounds of children's laughter fading into the soft murmur of conversations as the evening settled in. The soft call of a seabird echoed in the distance, the last of the day's light flickering over the horizon. It was a peaceful, serene moment, one that reminded the potter of the continuity of life. He had worked here for so many years, each day blending into the next, with each turn of the wheel marking another step in a never-ending dance of creation. Yet in that dance, he found solace. The simple act of making pottery, of shaping the earth with his hands, was a way to anchor himself in the present moment, a way to release the weight of the world and focus only on the task at hand. The potter paused for a moment, his hands still, resting on the cool clay, feeling the smooth surface beneath his fingertips. He looked around the workshop, at the shelves lined with completed pieces, each one holding the traces of his work, the slight indentations left by his fingers, curves shaped by his touch. His pottery, like his life, was an expression of slow, deliberate work. It was never rushed, never forced. It unfolded naturally, like the rhythm of the sea that continued its endless dance with the shore. The potter knew that the world outside was always in motion, always changing, but here, in his workshop, time moved with a deliberate grace. As he returned to his work, the gentle turning of the wheel resumed, the soft, consistent hum filling the room once again. The clay responded, softening and shaping beneath his hands, and the potter felt a deep sense of satisfaction in this quiet, purposeful act. There was something profoundly calming about it, something that helped him forget the world's noise and chaos. In this moment, there was only him, the clay, and the wheel. He worked on, shaping bowl after bowl, jar after jar, each piece a small part of the larger rhythm of his life. The village outside carried on, the day drifting slowly toward evening. But within the workshop, time seemed suspended, untouched by the world beyond. The potter felt connected not only to the clay he shaped, but to the countless generations of artisans who had come before him. He thought of his father, his grandfather, and their ancestors, each one a part of this unbroken lineage of creators. It was a comforting thought, one that reminded him that, in a way, he was never truly alone. He was part of a greater tradition, a lineage that stretched back through the ages, and that thought brought him a deep sense of peace. He was not just a potter. He was a keeper of a craft, a tradition, and the stories that had been passed down through the generations. Each bowl and jar he made held a piece of those stories, a piece of history, and as he shaped the clay, he added his own story to the tapestry. The evening light deepened, and the shadows in the workshop grew longer, but the potter continued his work, his hands steady and sure, moving with the flow of the wheel. The rhythm of the sea outside, the rhythm of his work, the rhythm of his life, all these elements blended together in a perfect harmony. There was no rush to finish, no sense of urgency. There was only the quiet dance of creation. As he completed the final piece for the day, the potter stepped back and surveyed his work. The shelves were filled with his creations, each one a testament to his dedication and patience. The sun had now set, and the evening had settled in, but the potter felt no need to rush. He took a deep breath, allowing the stillness of the evening to wash over him. He knew that tomorrow would bring another day of work, another rhythm to follow, but for now, he was content. The world would continue to turn, the waves would continue to crash on the shore, and the wheel would continue to spin, carrying him along in the dance of creation. And with that thought, the potter stood, wiped his hands on a cloth, and stepped out of the workshop, leaving behind the soft hum of the wheel and the quiet rhythm of his work. Outside, the stars had begun to appear, their light mingling with the soft glow of the moon. The village was quiet now, at peace with the passing of another day. And the potter, in the stillness of the evening, felt a deep connection to the world. Around him, to the earth, the sea, and the endless rhythm of creation. As the night deepened and the soft glow of the moon bathed the coastal village in its silvery light, the potter's workshop stood in peaceful solitude, its wooden walls faintly outlined by the flickering lamplight inside. The evening had unfolded, like every other, slow and deliberate. But now, as the world outside settled into the quiet hum of the night, the potter paused to reflect on the day's work. He stood in front of the shelves, his gaze lingering on the pottery he had shaped. Each piece, each bowl, jar, and cup was a quiet testament to his work, a product of his hands, his time, his patience. As his eyes scanned the row of freshly shaped vessels, he marveled at how each one, though similar in form, held its own character, its own subtle differences, its own soul. The craftsmanship was uniform, yet each piece seemed to carry a hint of its own individuality, shaped by the careful decisions he made with each turn of the wheel. The steady hum of the wheel still echoed in his mind, its rhythm a persistent heartbeat that had kept time with his own, marking the hours of creation that passed in such fluidity that he had scarcely noticed the passing of the day. As the potter surveyed his work, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. There was something profoundly satisfying about seeing the fruits of his labor laid out in front of him, each piece glowing faintly in the warm light of the lamp, ready to be fired, ready to serve its purpose in the world. But it wasn't just the final product that brought him satisfaction. It was the process, the quiet, meditative work of creating. He had always felt a connection to the clay, an unspoken understanding that had grown over years of practice. The clay, though inanimate, seemed to speak to him, its texture and feel guiding his hands, teaching him as he worked. It was a relationship built on trust and patience, one that had only deepened over time. The potter knew that the act of creation was more than just about the final product. It was about the process, the patience it took to shape the clay, the focus required to stay in the present moment, the gentle pressure of his hands, the way the wheel spun under his fingertips. All of these elements, woven together, formed a kind of meditation, one that calmed his mind and centered his thoughts. It was in this quiet, focused state that the potter found peace, a peace that was mirrored in the stillness of the workshop, the soft rhythm of the wheel now only a memory in the quiet air. Outside, the village had quieted as well. The sounds of the day had faded, replaced by the occasional murmur of voices, the fluttering of wings as birds settled in their nests, and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle evening breeze. The village was at rest, and so was the potter. Yet, there was a sense of gentle, quiet activity in the air, a hum of life that continued even in the stillness. The world was always turning, always shifting, and even in the deepest moments of stillness, there was movement. As the potter continued to gaze at his work, a feeling of gratitude filled him. He was grateful for the opportunity to shape, to create, to give form to the earth. He was grateful for the skill he had honed over the years, for the wisdom he had gained through countless hours of practice. But most of all, he was grateful for the quiet moments, the moments where time seemed to slow and the world faded away, leaving only him, his hands, and the clay. The potter took a deep breath, letting the peaceful silence wash over him. He had worked all day, shaping and molding, and now, as the evening unfolded around him, he allowed himself to simply be. The moment. There was no rush to finish, no need to hurry. The day had been full of creation, full of meaning, and now, in the stillness, he could simply appreciate it. He stood for a long while, allowing the quiet to settle into his bones, feeling a sense of peace that only came after a day's work. As he moved through the workshop, preparing to close for the night, he reflected on the flow of time. Time, like the wheel, seemed to move in cycles, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, but always moving forward. The potter knew that tomorrow would bring another day of creation, another opportunity to shape the clay, to turn the wheel, to create something new. But for now, he was content to rest. The fire in the hearth had long since died down, leaving only the warmth of the room to cradle him as he moved toward the door. The village was quiet now, the sounds of the sea muted by the night air, and the stars above shimmered with a soft, steady light. It was a peaceful night, the kind of night that allowed the potter to rest fully, knowing that his work was done. For the day, he stepped outside, feeling the cool breeze against his skin, and closed the door to the workshop behind him. The world outside seemed to be at peace, and the potter, too, felt a deep, quiet contentment. The work he did was important, but it was the stillness in between that mattered most. As he made his way toward his home, he felt the weight of the day's work lift from his shoulders. The quiet, peaceful evening was a perfect counterbalance to the hours of labor, a moment to recharge before the next day's work began. And as he walked beneath the starry sky, he felt a deep connection to the world around him. The earth, the sea, and the sky, all of it a part of the same rhythm that had shaped his hands, his craft, and his life. Tomorrow would bring more work, more shaping, more turning of the wheel. But for now, the potter was at peace, resting in the quiet afterglow of creation. As the first light of dawn gently crept over the horizon, the coastal village stirred with the softest sigh of morning, the horizon painted in the delicate hues of pink, gold, and lavender. The air was cool and crisp, carrying with it the scent of the sea, fresh earth, and the remnants of the night's soft mist. In the potter's workshop, the air felt warm, wrapped in the steady embrace of quiet contemplation. The potter was already awake, as he often was, at the crack of dawn, finding that the earliest moments of the day offered him the clearest mind, the quietest space to begin his work. He moved through the workshop with practiced ease, the silence around him like a blanket that allowed his thoughts to settle and his body to prepare for another day of shaping. The wheel, still and silent in the morning light, waited patiently for his touch, a tool as familiar as his own hands. His fingers traced the worn edge of the wheel's surface, feeling the coolness of the stone beneath them. There was something grounding in this, the simple rhythmic act of returning to the wheel, of beginning again. Every day he returned to it, not just because it was his work, but because it was his sanctuary, his place of connection to the world and to the earth itself. The potter's work was more than a trade. It was a quiet conversation between him and the clay, a dialogue that took place in the stillness, in the turning of the wheel, in the shape of the vessels that emerged from his hands. It was as though each piece, each bowl, jar, or cup held a piece of his soul, and in turn, he gave a piece of himself to the earth every time he shaped the clay. The morning light filtered through the small windows of the workshop, casting soft patterns on the walls, the shelves, and the drying pottery. The light seemed to bring the room to life in a different way than the night's lamplight. The shadows shifted and softened, creating a sense of fluidity in the space, mirroring the very rhythm of creation. The potter smiled softly to himself as he prepared the wheel, setting everything in its place. There was something almost sacred about this ritual, this quiet dance of setting the stage for the day's work. The world outside was coming to life. Birds were beginning their morning calls. The village was waking up. But in the workshop, time slowed. Here, in this place, there was only the wheel, the clay, and his steady hands. The potter's mind wandered as he began the slow, deliberate turning of the wheel. His thoughts drifted, as they often did, to the many years he had spent perfecting his craft, the hours he had spent shaping, the mistakes he had made, the small, subtle details he had learned to refine. Each day of work, each vessel, was a continuation of a journey that had begun long ago when he first learned to shape the earth beneath his hands. Over the years, he had come to understand the clay in a way that few others did. It wasn't just a medium to be shaped. It was a living thing, responsive to his touch, to his intentions. The more he worked with it, the more it seemed to respond, almost as if it had its own voice. The potter knew that it wasn't just about the finished piece, but the process of creation itself. It was in the shaping, in the careful, deliberate movements that formed the vessel. It was in the stillness of the moment, the quiet attention to detail, the patience that came with each rotation of the wheel. It was the moment when the clay first took form under his hands, when the idea in his mind became a reality in the shape of the vessel. He loved that moment, the simplicity of it. It was in that moment that he felt most connected to the world around him, to the earth, to the sea, to the village. It was a moment of pure harmony, where all distractions fell away, and it was only the potter, the clay, and the rhythm of the wheel. The potter's hands were steady as they worked, his fingers gliding over the surface of the clay with practiced ease. He wasn't thinking about what was next or what had come before. He was simply in the moment, letting the rhythm of his hands guide him. Each movement was fluid, each touch of the clay deliberate and focused. His hands were a mirror of the wheel itself, turning with a quiet grace that echoed the turning of the earth beneath him. The potter felt the familiar pull of the clay beneath his fingertips, the subtle resistance as he shaped it, the way it yielded to his touch. He pressed the clay into form, feeling the vessel emerge beneath his hands. There was a deep satisfaction In the quiet, meditative work that brought the vessel into being. He had learned long ago that the work was never truly finished. There was always more to be done, always more to learn, always more to discover. But there was peace in the process, in the quiet rhythm of creation. As the potter shaped the clay, his mind wandered once more to the village, to the people who lived there, to the simple rhythms of their daily lives. He thought of the families who would soon sit down to their meals, of the children playing by the shore, of the neighbors exchanging greetings as they went about their day. The potter felt a deep connection to them, to the world around him. His work, though quiet and humble, was an integral part of that world. It was the vessels he shaped that would hold the meals for the village, the water for the families, the cups for the quiet moments of reflection. His work was woven into the fabric of the village, into the daily rhythms that kept the community moving forward. The morning continued to unfold around him, but the potter remained focused on his work, shaping the clay, turning the wheel, lost in the rhythm of creation. There was peace in this, in the quiet flow of time, in the steady rhythm of the wheel. Beneath his hands, the world outside might be waking up, but in the workshop, time moved at its own pace, guided by the turning of the wheel and the steady hands of the potter. The moment was all that mattered, the present, the now. And in that present moment, the potter was at peace, content in the quiet flow of his work, content in the rhythm of the dawn. As the days passed, each one blending seamlessly into the next, the potter continued his work in the workshop, the rhythm of the wheel and the steady press of his hands, shaping the clay into vessels of purpose and beauty. The light of the afternoon filtered through the wooden slats of the windows, casting long, warm shadows across the floor and filling the room with a quiet sense of anticipation. Every piece of pottery that emerged from his hands was a testament to his patience, his craftsmanship, and the deep connection he felt to the earth beneath him. For the potter, the act of creation was a journey, one that began with a lump of unshaped clay and ended with a finished piece, ready to serve its purpose in the world. But the journey itself, the process of creation, was what mattered most. It was a journey that mirrored life itself, steady, sometimes difficult, but always moving forward, one turn of the wheel at a time. The potter had learned over the years that the key to his craft was not in rushing or forcing the clay to take shape. It was in letting the process unfold at its own pace, in allowing the clay to speak to him through the subtle resistance it offered, and entrusting his hands to guide it gently into form. As he worked, the potter's mind wandered to the journey of his own life. He had come far since those early days, when he had first learned the craft of pottery from an elder potter in the village. Back then, he had been uncertain, unsure of his abilities, his hands hesitant as they worked with the clay. But through years of practice and dedication, he had come to understand the clay, to understand the way it responded to his touch, to know how to coax it into shape. And in that journey, he had also come to understand himself. Every piece he created was not just a reflection of his skill, but of his inner growth, his journey toward mastery. As he shaped the clay that afternoon, he reflected on the many lessons he had learned along the way, the importance of patience, the value of practice, and the deep connection between the creator and the creation. He had learned that no piece of pottery was ever truly finished. Even after it was fired, glazed, and set on the shelf, it continued to hold the essence of the creator's hands, the imprint of the process that had brought it into being. And in a way, the potter himself was never truly finished either. Each day, he returned to the wheel, each piece of clay a new opportunity to grow, to learn, to improve. It was this continual journey of creation that gave his life purpose and meaning. The quiet rhythm of the workshop, the steady turning of the wheel, and the soft hiss of the clay under his fingers became a kind of meditation for the potter. He was not thinking of the past or the future. He was completely absorbed in the present moment, in the act of creation itself. The rhythm of the wheel, the pressure of his hands, and the subtle feedback from the clay all came together in a harmonious dance that centered him in the here and now. Outside, the village continued with its daily life, children playing by the shore, families gathering for meals, neighbors exchanging greetings. But inside the workshop, time moved differently, slow and deliberate, like the turning of the wheel beneath his hands. It was in these moments that the potter felt most alive, most connected to the world around him. His work was his contribution to that world, a small but meaningful way of giving back. Each bowl, each jar, each cup that emerged from his hands was part of the fabric of the village's daily life. His work would hold food, water, and drink for the families who lived here, and it would carry with it the quiet energy of the potter's hands. It was this connection between his work and the life of the village that gave him a sense of fulfillment. His pottery was more than just a functional object. It was a part of the village's story, a piece of its history that would endure long. After he was gone, the potter paused for a moment, his hands resting on the wheel as he looked out toward the shimmering sea, which stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The waves rolled in steady rhythm, their soft murmur a familiar lullaby. To him, a constant reminder of the unchanging nature of the world around him. He thought of the many generations that had come before him, of the potters who had worked in this very village, shaping the same clay, making the same vessels, and living lives of quiet dedication. It was a humbling thought, the realization that his work, though small, was part of something much larger than himself. It was part of a tradition that stretched back through the ages, a thread that connected him to the generations before and the generations to come. The potter's hands resumed their work, pressing the clay into shape, each movement a meditation, a prayer of sorts, for the beauty and purpose he found in his craft. The wheel turned steadily beneath his palms, and with each rotation he could feel the gentle hum of the earth beneath him, the rhythm of the world itself. The world outside continued to unfold, the village waking up to the demands of the day. But within the walls of the workshop, the potter remained in his quiet space, shaping the clay, shaping his life, one turn of the wheel at a time. As the afternoon light began to soften, the potter paused again, his work complete for the moment. He stood back and looked at the piece he had created, a simple bowl, smooth and symmetrical, its curves perfect in their simplicity. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not from the bowl itself, but from the process of its creation. He had given it form, had shaped it with care, and now it would serve a purpose in the world. It was a small thing, but in its quiet way, was perfect. The potter knew that his journey was far from over. Tomorrow, he would return to the wheel, and the journey of creation would begin again. The clay would speak to him once more, and he would listen, shaping it with his hands, with his heart. And so, with the setting sun casting a golden glow over the village, the potter left the workshop, knowing that the work would always be there, waiting for him. The journey of creation was never-ending, always unfolding, and he would continue to walk that path for as long as his hands could shape the clay. The air was cool with the first light of dawn as the potter stepped into his workshop, the familiar rhythm of the morning setting the stage for another day of creation. The soft, golden light filtered through the narrow wooden slats of the windows, casting delicate beams across the well-worn earthen floor. A faint breeze from the sea drifted through the open door, carrying the crisp scent of salt water and earth, grounding the potter in the peaceful world he had built with his hands. There was a calm in the workshop, a tranquility that had settled over the space as the years had passed, like the dusting of fine clay that would settle on a newly formed vessel. The potter's heart beat with the steady pulse of the earth beneath him, the deep connection he felt to this place, and the work that had sustained him. He had long ago learned that in the act of creation, there was not just the shaping of clay, but the shaping of life itself, a life that, much like the clay, was malleable and ever-changing. Today, as always, he would return to the wheel, the very same wheel that had borne witness to countless vessels, each one a story of its own, a testament to patience and persistence. The wheel was not just a tool. It was a companion in this journey of creation, and with each turn, the potter's thoughts settled more deeply into the process. He took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar sense of damp earth, clay, and the lingering traces of the sea, and let the calmness of the moment wash over him. The potter's hands rested on the wheel for a brief moment, feeling the cool surface of the clay beneath his fingers. His mind drifted to the passing seasons, to the countless cycles of work, rest, and renewal. It seemed to him that life, much like pottery, was about cycles, constant, rhythmic, and inevitable. He had seen the seasons change again and again, each one bringing new challenges, new lessons, and new beginnings. It was a humbling thought to be so deeply intertwined with the earth's eternal rhythm. The potter's fingers began their dance on the clay, pressing, pulling, and coaxing the soft earth into shape. The wheel began to turn, slowly at first, then gaining momentum as his hands guided the clay. It was always the same, yet it was always new. The clay responded to his touch, yielding to his will, but never in exactly the same way as before. Each piece, like each day, had its own unique path. The potter had come to understand that this was the beauty of his work. No two pieces were ever identical, just as no 2 days were ever the same. He smiled quietly to himself as he shaped the clay, watching it transform under his hands. The pieces he created were not just objects. They were moments in time, reflections of the world as he saw it. He shaped bowls for the villagers to eat from, jars to hold the herbs and grains that nourished their bodies, cups for quiet moments of tea or water, and vases for flowers to brighten the home. With each new creation, the potter felt that he was offering a small piece of himself to the world. His work had become more than a simple craft. It was a gift, a way of connecting with those around him, of offering a part of his soul through the vessels he shaped. As the wheel turned, the potter's thoughts turned inward. He thought of the generations that had come before him, of the potters whose hands had shaped clay in this very village long before he was born. He thought of the ancient traditions that had been passed down through the years, the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom. And yet, even as he honored those traditions, the potter knew that he was part of something larger, something that transcended the boundaries of time. He was part of an unbroken line of creators, of artisans, of storytellers. The potter's hands continued their work, moving with a grace that only years of practice could bring. With each piece he shaped, he was adding to the story of the village, contributing to its history, its culture, its soul. And in turn, each piece carried a small part of him. It was in this quiet dance of creation that the potter found his purpose. He had no need for grand monuments or accolades. His work, though humble, was enough. It was enough to shape the earth with his hands, to create vessels that would serve others, and to live in harmony with the world around him. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a brighter light across the workshop. The potter paused for a moment, his hands resting gently on the wheel. He looked around at the shelves filled with drying pottery, each piece a quiet testament to his work, his dedication, and his love for the craft. He knew that the pieces would soon be fired, their colors deepened, their forms hardened. They would find their place in the village, becoming part of the everyday lives of the people who relied on them. The potter felt a deep sense of satisfaction. not from the pieces themselves, but from the knowledge that his work had meaning. It was a simple life, but it was rich with purpose. He took a deep breath and returned to his work, his hands once again shaping the clay. The wheel turned steadily. Beneath him, each rotation a small step in the ongoing journey of creation. As he worked, the potter's thoughts turned to the future. He wondered what the years ahead would bring, what new challenges, what new opportunities. But for now, in this moment, there was only the wheel, the clay, and the rhythm of creation. The future could wait. The potter's hands moved with practiced precision, his mind free of distractions, completely absorbed in the process. There was a beauty in this simplicity, a quiet joy in the act of creation itself. And as the clay took shape beneath his hands, the potter knew that he was part of something much greater than himself, part of a tradition, part of a community, part of the ongoing story of the world. He smiled to himself as he worked, grateful for the work of his hands, the peaceful world around him, and the endless journey of creation that lay ahead. As the seasons continued their eternal cycle, the potter's hands remained steady, carving and shaping the clay with the same care he had always known. The quiet village by the sea seemed to slow down with each passing year, yet the rhythm of the potter's work, the steady turning of the wheel, and the soft hum of creation never wavered. The warm light of the summer sun began to fade, giving way to the cooler breeze of autumn, and the potter found himself reflecting more often on the passage of time. The shelves of his workshop, now lined with an array of pottery, stood as silent, witnesses to his journey, each piece a chapter in the ongoing story of his life, shaped with care, love, and patience. He had long come to understand that time was like the clay in his hands. It could be molded, shaped, and formed, but it always left behind traces of its passage. His fingers, calloused and worn from years of work, still moved with the same fluidity as when he first began, but they carried with them the wisdom of experience. The young potter who had once entered this workshop with wide eyes and eager hands had been replaced by someone more seasoned, more attuned to the delicate balance of creation. Yet, as much as the potter had changed over the years, the essence of his work remained unchanged. Each day, as the wheel spun beneath his hands, he found himself surrendering once again to the rhythm of creation, to the quiet song of the earth beneath his fingertips, to the endless dance between man and clay. As the leaves of the trees outside, the workshop slowly began to turn golden and fall. The potter thought about the passing of seasons, of how life seemed to mimic nature in so many ways. Just as the clay yielded to his hands, so too did life yield to time's unrelenting march. Yet in each moment the potter found solace, for in the slow, steady turning of the wheel, he found a refuge from the inevitable passage of time. The world outside his workshop may have changed. New generations had come and gone. The village had grown, and the landscape itself had shifted with the changing winds. But the work, the quiet act of creation, remained constant. It was this continuity, this enduring connection to something timeless, that gave the potter his sense of peace. He was not bound by the world's fleeting trends or the noise of change. Instead, he was part of something older, something that transcended the years. His work was rooted in the earth, in the slow rhythms of nature, and in the hands of those who had come before him. And so, as autumn deepened and the air grew cooler, the potter continued his work, shaping the clay with the same care and attention to detail he had always given. The gentle hum of the wheel continued, steady and constant, blending with the soft rustling of the wind outside and the distant murmur of the sea. The potter's thoughts turned inward as he shaped another bowl, his hands moving instinctively as the wheel spun beneath him. His mind wandered to the past, to the many years he had spent in this workshop, to the people he had met, the lessons he had learned, and the quiet joy he had found in the simple act of creating something with his hands. It seemed almost surreal. How time could pass so swiftly, yet leave behind such lasting impressions. Every piece he made was a memory, a moment in time captured in clay. And as he worked, he realized that this was what he had been searching for all along. A way to leave his mark on the world, a way to be part of something that would outlast him. He had always thought of his pottery as functional, as something to serve the daily needs of the people in the village. But now, as the years had passed, he understood that it was more than just that. Each piece was a reflection of the world as he saw it, a moment of stillness amidst the chaos of life. His pottery was a way to capture the essence of the world around him, to preserve a piece of it in clay, and to offer it back to those who would use it. The potter smiled to himself, a quiet satisfaction settling deep within his chest. He had found his place in the world, not through grand achievements or recognition, but through the simple, steady act of creating. It was in the quiet rhythm of the wheel, the turning of the earth beneath his hands, and the slow, deliberate shaping of the clay that he found his purpose. There was a serenity in this work, a peace that came from the knowledge that he was part of something larger than himself, something that would continue long after he was gone. The potter looked around his workshop, taking in the shelves of pottery that lined the walls. Each piece was a testament to his work, to his dedication, and to the passing of time. And though the seasons would continue to change, the clay would remain. It would always be there, waiting to be shaped by his hands, just as it had been shaped by the hands of those who had come before him. As the final light of day faded and the workshop grew quiet, the potter finished his work for the day. He wiped his hands on his cloth and looked out toward the sea, where the last light of the sun cast a warm glow over the water. It was a peaceful sight, one that filled him with gratitude for the simple life he had found. The seasons would continue to pass, and the years would continue to unfold, but the potter knew that as long as he had his hands in the clay, he would always have a place in the world. The quiet rhythm of the wheel would always be there, guiding him through the seasons, through the changes, and through the passage of time. And in that steady rhythm, he had found his home. As winter approached, the potter's workshop became a haven of warmth amidst the crisp, biting cold that gripped the village. The fire in the hearth crackled steadily, casting a soft, flickering light on the walls, while the steady turning of the wheel continued to hum through the stillness of the room. The potter, now accustomed to the quiet rhythm of his work, found solace in the solitude that this time of year brought. The bustling of the warmer seasons had given way to the quiet peace of winter, where the world outside seemed to sleep beneath a blanket of snow, and only the softest sounds could be heard. The wind whispering through the trees, the crunch of footsteps on frozen ground, and the steady, comforting hum of the wheel turning. With each passing day, the potter continued his work, shaping the clay with the same care and precision he had always known. But now, there was something deeper in the process. The cold outside mirrored the calm that had settled in his heart, and he began to realize that, like the seasons, his life too had entered a period of reflection and stillness. His hands, weathered and worn from years of work, moved with a kind of reverence as they pressed and shaped the soft clay. Each turn of the wheel felt like a meditation, a moment to reflect on all that had come before and all that would follow. The potter had spent so many years focused on his craft, on the rhythm of creation, that he had not truly noticed how much he had changed. He had been so caught up in the turning of the wheel, the shaping of the clay, that he had not seen how his own life had mirrored that same process. The clay, so soft and malleable in his hands, had slowly transformed over the years into something beautiful and enduring, just as he had. The simplicity of his work had taught him the value of patience, the importance of persistence, and the beauty of the slow, steady passage of time. As he shaped another bowl, his thoughts wandered to the people he had met over the years, friends and strangers alike, who had come and gone from the village. Some had left, seeking opportunities in far-off lands, while others had remained, like him, anchored to this place. The potter had seen many seasons pass, and with each one, he had learned something new, something deeper about himself and the world around him. But it was in the quiet, contemplative moments of winter that he truly understood what his work meant. It was not just about creating vessels for everyday use. It was about creating something that could carry a piece of him into the world, something that could outlast him and become part of something larger than himself. Each piece of pottery he made was not just a functional object, but a story, a moment in time captured in clay. As he carefully shaped the rim of the bowl, he thought about how each curve, each press of his fingers, reflected his own journey. The potter had always been content to live simply, to work with his hands, and to find joy in the quiet moments of life. But now, in the stillness of winter, he realized that his work was not just a means of survival, but a form of expression. A way to connect with the world around him in a deeper way. It was the act of creation that gave him a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and a way to leave his mark on the world. His pottery was not just about function. It was about beauty, it was about connection, and it was about the shared experience of life. He had spent so many years focused on the act of creating, but now, with the quiet of winter surrounding him, he found himself reflecting on the legacy he was leaving behind. The bowls, jars, and cups that filled the shelves of his workshop were not just objects, they were pieces of his soul, his life, his love for the earth, and his connection to the world around him. The potter paused, resting his hands gently on the finished bowl, feeling the smoothness of the clay beneath his fingers. He looked around the workshop, taking in the familiar sight of his tools, the shelves of drying pottery, and the faint traces of past work that lingered in the air. This was his world, his sanctuary, and he felt a deep sense of peace in knowing that he had created something that would endure. As the fire in the hearth crackled softly, the potter thought about how his work had changed over the years. He had started with humble intentions, seeking to create functional pieces for the daily lives of the village. But over time, his work had evolved into something more. His pottery had become a way of capturing the essence of life, of reflecting the quiet beauty of the world around him. And now, as winter deepened, he realized that his work had become a way of preserving the past, a way of connecting with the generations who had come before him and those who would come after. The quiet turning of the wheel seemed to echo the passage of time itself, and the potter found comfort in the knowledge that, just like the seasons, his work would continue year after year, long after he was gone. The bowl before him, now complete, was not just a piece of pottery. It was a testament to the quiet dedication of a life well lived. The potter carefully placed the bowl on the shelf and turned his attention back to the wheel. As the evening light faded and the soft glow of the fire lit the room, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction in his work. The seasons would continue to change. The years would continue to pass. But the potter knew that, just like the clay, he had shaped his own life into something enduring, something beautiful, something that would carry on long after he was gone. As he pressed his hands into the soft clay, he smiled to himself, knowing that this quiet act of creation was his legacy. And with that thought, the potter continued to work, his hands moving in perfect harmony with the turning wheel, a steady hum of creation filling the room, and the quiet peace of winter settling around him. As the months of winter stretched on, the potter's workshop remained a quiet sanctuary where time moved with deliberate grace. The days grew shorter, and the cold winds outside howled through the village. But within the warmth of the workshop, the potter found solace in the steady rhythm of his hands on the wheel. Each morning, as the sun barely rose above the horizon, he would light the fire in the hearth, the warmth spreading through the room like a soft embrace. The familiar scent of damp clay, mingled with the earthy undertones of the firewood, filled the space, creating a comforting atmosphere that invited his thoughts to wander. The wheel turned, its steady hum a constant companion, blending seamlessly with the soft rustle of wind outside and the occasional distant call of seabirds overhead. The potter's hands moved with practiced ease, pressing and shaping the soft clay into bowls, jars, and cups, each piece taking form with deliberate care. Over the years, he had mastered his craft, the motions now so ingrained in his body that they seemed to flow without thought. Yet even in this familiarity, there was always a sense of wonder how the clay, so malleable and soft in his hands, could transform into something lasting, something that would endure beyond the fleeting moment. The slow, patient process had become a meditation, a way of connecting with the earth and with time itself. In the solitude of the workshop, the potter began to realize how much his craft had shaped him, how the rhythm of the wheel mirrored the rhythm of his life. Each turn of the wheel was like the turning of a page, marking another chapter in a story that was still unfolding. As the seasons passed, he had watched his life shift, like the clay in his hands, from one phase to another. The busy days of youth, filled with ambition and energy, had slowly given way to the quieter, more reflective years of adulthood. And now, as the world outside seemed to sleep beneath a blanket of snow, the potter found himself in a time of stillness, a time to reflect on all that had been and all that was yet to come. With each vessel he shaped, he thought of the generations that had come before him, those who had worked the land, who had known the rhythms of the seasons as intimately as he knew the turning of the wheel. The potter had always been aware of the connection between his work and the world around him. But now, in the quiet of winter, that connection seemed even more profound. He was part of something larger, a link in a chain that stretched back through time, connecting him to the land, the people, and the craft. His hands, worn and calloused from years of labor, had become a vessel for the wisdom of generations, a bridge between the past and the present. As the potter shaped another bowl, he thought of the people who would use it, the families who would gather around it, sharing meals and stories, creating memories. His work, so simple yet so profound, would become part of their lives, a silent witness to the quiet moments that made up the tapestry of existence. The potter had always believed in the power of the everyday, in the small acts that made up a life well lived. And now, as he pressed his fingers into the soft clay, he realized that his work was not just about creating functional objects, but about creating a connection between people, between generations, and between the earth and the spirit. As the fire crackled softly in the hearth, the potter paused for a moment, his hands resting on the wheel, and looked around the workshop. The shelves were lined with pottery, each piece a testament to the slow, deliberate work that had gone into creating it. He thought of the years that had passed, the people he had met, and the quiet moments of reflection that had marked each turning of the wheel. And he realized that, like the pottery he made, his life too had been shaped by time, by patience, and by the quiet rhythm of creation. The days of winter seemed to stretch on forever, but in the potter's heart there was a deep sense of peace. The work continued, the wheel turned, and the world outside slept beneath a blanket of snow. But inside the workshop, the potter found himself in harmony with the earth, the seasons, and the quiet rhythm of his own life. The slow turning of the wheel was a reflection of the passing of time, and the potter knew that, like the clay, he too would continue to transform, to change, and to endure. With each vessel he shaped, he was reminded of the fleeting nature of life, and the enduring power of creation. And as the light of the fire flickered softly in the room, he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the work he had done, for the life he had lived, and for the quiet, enduring rhythm that connected him to the world. The potter's hands moved once more, pressing and shaping the clay, the wheel turning steadily beneath his palms. In the stillness of winter, he knew that his work, like the seasons, would continue, turning and transforming with each passing day, each passing moment. And in that quiet rhythm, he found peace. As the frost of early spring began to thaw, the potter found himself drawn more and more to the quiet moments of solitude in his workshop. The world outside was awakening, the first buds of green pushing through the soft earth. But inside the workshop, time seemed to stand still. The rhythm of the wheel remained constant, like a pulse that tied him to something older, deeper. Each turn of the wheel was a reminder of the endless cycle of life, of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. The potter's hands moved with practiced ease, shaping the clay with deliberate care. Yet with each piece, he felt a greater sense of purpose. He was no longer just creating pottery. He was shaping something more enduring, something that would outlive him. The vessels he made were simple, functional, but they carried with them the quiet dignity of a life lived with purpose. They were pieces of a larger story, one that he had been part of for years, but which now, in his quiet solitude, seemed to take on greater meaning. The seasons had always been a constant companion in the potter's life, but now, as he worked, he began to see his place within them more clearly. He was part of the flow of time, a link in a chain that stretched back to ancient times. The stories of the land, the people, and the crafts that had sustained them were all carried in the earth beneath his fingers. And as he shaped the clay, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him, an inheritance that he could not escape, yet one that he could shape, one piece at a time. The potter had long known that his craft was about more than just making functional items. It was about creating something lasting, something that would serve a purpose beyond the immediate. His work was a quiet testament to the continuity of life, the unspoken bond between past and present. He had learned from the masters before him, those whose hands had turned the wheel long before his own. And now, in the stillness of his workshop, he understood that it was his turn to pass on that legacy. Each piece he shaped, each bowl, jar, and cup was a small piece of the larger narrative of his life and the lives of those who would use them. His pottery was not just about form and function. It was about creating a connection, an invisible thread that tied together the generations. The potter's fingers, calloused from years of labor, moved over the cool, damp clay with practiced grace. There was no rush in his movements, no sense of urgency, just the slow, steady rhythm of creation. With each turn of the wheel, he shaped not only the clay, but the very course of his life. The work was a meditation, a way to connect with the earth and with the passage of time. He could feel the presence of those who had come before him, and he could hear their voices in the hum of the wheel. They had shaped the world in their own time, just as he was shaping the world in his. The legacy of their work lived on in his hands and in the quiet, simple forms he created. As the potter's mind wandered, he thought of his own children. They had grown up in the village, and though they had chosen different paths in life, he had always hoped that they would understand the importance of the work he did. He had not pushed them to follow in his footsteps, but he had always hoped that, in some quiet way, they would carry the lessons he had learned. The potter had often wondered what kind of legacy he would leave behind. Was it enough to simply create beautiful pieces of pottery? Was there more to his work than the vessels he shaped? As he paused, his hands resting on the wheel, he realized that the true legacy of his work was not in the pottery itself, but in the quiet wisdom that each piece held. His work was about patience, dedication, and the ability to find beauty in simplicity. It was about being present in each moment, about understanding the connection between the earth, the people, and the rhythm of life. As the sun set behind the hills, casting a soft golden glow over the workshop, the potter sat back and surveyed the shelves lined with his work. The pieces were simple, yet each one was a reflection of his life, of the years spent in this humble space, of the quiet labor, and of the connection to the earth and the people he served. He thought of the generations that would follow, of those who would use his vessels long after he was gone. And in that quiet moment, he understood that his legacy was not in the pottery itself, but in the way he had lived his life. It was in the care he had taken to shape each piece, in the attention to detail, and in the quiet rhythms of creation. He had shaped his life with the same care and patience that he used to shape the clay, and in that he had found his true legacy. The workshop grew darker as the evening wore on, but the potter remained in his seat, his hands resting on the wheel. The fire had burned low, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore outside was a gentle reminder of the world beyond. Yet inside the workshop, the potter felt a deep sense of peace. He had found his place in the world, not in grand gestures or achievements, but in the simple, steady work of his hands. He had shaped his life with purpose, and in that, he had created something lasting. He knew that his work, like the clay, would continue to transform, to evolve, and to endure. And as he sat in the fading light, he felt the quiet rhythm of the wheel beneath his hands, a reminder that his legacy, like the pottery he had made, would continue to turn, shaping the world long after he was gone. The days continued their steady march toward the full embrace of spring, and the potter's workshop remained a sanctuary of peace amidst the gentle chaos of life in the village. As the earth began to stir with new life, so too did the potter's hands, finding their rhythm once again with the smooth, cool clay. The quiet hum of the wheel filled the space, a comforting constant as the seasons unfolded their promises outside the open door. Inside, the potter moved with the grace of one who had long understood the deep connection between time, earth, and creation. There was no rush, no frantic hurry to finish a piece. Each bowl, jar, and cup was formed with deliberate care, as if the very earth beneath his hands had whispered the instructions, guiding his movements in gentle cadence. It was in the simplicity of these moments that the potter found his peace, in the touch of his fingers against the clay, the steady turn of the wheel, the way the earth yielded to his will, each motion a reflection of something deeper. In those quiet intervals between the hum of the wheel and the swish of his hands shaping the clay, the potter felt the pulse of the world itself, the rhythm of the earth, the tides, and the changing seasons. The simplicity of his work of shaping the earth into vessels that would serve in everyday life carried with it the profound realization that, in a way, he was creating more than just functional items. He was creating connections to the past, to the land, and to those who would one day use his pottery. Each piece was a continuation of something much larger, a moment frozen in time, tied to the earth and the life around him. He had learned long ago that this was the true essence of his craft, to shape and mold the earth not with force or impatience, but with a steady hand and an open heart, listening to what the clay had to say. As he worked, the potter's mind would often wander, reflecting on the legacy he was quietly building with each day. He thought of the generations of potters who had come before him, their hands shaping clay just as his did now, and of the future generations who would inherit this craft. The thought filled him with a quiet sense of purpose. The earth, in all its quiet wisdom, had a way of teaching patience, a lesson that had become more apparent with every passing year. The world outside was ever changing, but inside his workshop, Time seemed to slow. The potter often wondered what the future would hold. Would the next generation of villagers continue the traditions he had helped preserve, or would they find their own paths, as so many had before? The thought brought him both comfort and a deep sense of responsibility. It was his work, his craft, his dedication to the earth that ensured the continuity of tradition. Yet, in that very thought, he also understood that the future was a place, not bound by the past, but shaped by it, just as he had shaped the clay beneath his hands. His fingers pressed firmly into the clay once again, pulling and coaxing it into shape, the steady rhythm of the wheel grounding him in the present moment. There was no need for grand gestures or bold statements. The quiet work was enough, the work that connected him to the earth, to the past, and to the future. It was in these simple, repetitive motions that the potter found his truest form of expression. He was not a man of many words, nor one who sought fame or recognition. His work spoke for him, in the way the earth spoke to him through the clay. There was a quiet wisdom in his hands, a wisdom that could only be learned through years of patience and observation. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow across the workshop, the potter paused for a moment, his hands resting on the nearly finished bowl. He lifted his gaze to the horizon, watching as the light shifted across the sea. The waves continued their endless dance, rolling in slow, measured cycles, much like the wheel beneath his hands. The connection was undeniable. He had been part of this world, this rhythm, for so long that it had become a part of him. He could feel it in the air, in the way the earth called to him with each new piece he shaped. The seasons had their own rhythm, and he had learned to follow it. As the evening approached and the sounds of the village began to soften, the potter turned his attention to the shelves filled with freshly shaped pottery. Each piece was a reflection of his dedication, his understanding of the rhythm of the earth and his place within it. There was no rush. Each piece had its own time, its own moment of completion. And as he worked, the potter understood that his task was not to force the clay into submission, but to listen to it, to allow it to take shape in its own time. There was an unspoken promise in each piece, a promise that the earth would continue to provide, that life would continue to unfold in its own quiet way. The work was never truly finished. The potter's legacy would live on not in the pieces themselves, but in the way his hands had touched the earth, in the way his craft had connected him to the world around him. Each piece, whether it was a bowl, a cup, or a jar, would eventually leave the workshop and find its place in the world. And in that quiet transition, the potter would continue his work, knowing that his hands, like the earth, would always be shaping and reshaping. The work would continue long after he was gone. Just as the earth would continue to turn, the seasons would continue to change, and the waves would continue to roll onto the shore. The potter smiled quietly to himself, content in the knowledge that he was a part of something much larger than himself, something that would endure long after the wheels stopped spinning and the earth returned to its quiet rest. In that stillness, he found peace. And in the quiet rhythm of his hands on the clay, he knew that the promise of the earth, the promise of continuity, of growth, and of life, would always be there, waiting for him to shape once again. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its soft golden rays across the potter's humble workshop, the potter continued his work in the familiar rhythm that had become second nature to him. The cool morning air filtered through the open door, carrying with it the subtle scent of salt and damp earth from the sea. The peaceful stillness of the workshop was a stark contrast to the bustle of the village beyond, where life moved with a steady, measured pace. Inside, the potter's hands danced across the spinning wheel, shaping the clay with a practiced grace that spoke of years of dedication and care. Each piece he formed was more than just a vessel for daily use. It was an expression of his connection to the earth, to the ancient craft he had inherited, and to the quiet rhythms of nature. The wheel spun, and with each rotation, the potter's fingers pressed and pulled the clay, coaxing it into the shape he had envisioned. It was a slow process, deliberate and thoughtful, each movement precise and measured. There was no rush. The potter had learned long ago that the work, like life itself, had its own pace, and it was only by surrendering to it that true beauty could emerge. As he worked, the potter's mind wandered, reflecting on the days that had passed and the many more to come. His thoughts turned to the village and the people who would one day use the pottery he created. He wondered how they would hold the bowls, the cups, the jars, whether they would find comfort in the simple objects he shaped. The thought brought him a sense of quiet satisfaction. He was not just making functional items. He was creating something that would become a part of their daily lives, something that would carry the marks of his hands and the patience with which he had crafted it. The air in the workshop was rich with the scent of damp clay, mingling with the salty breeze from the sea. The potter paused for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow, and looked out toward the horizon. The waves were rolling in with their usual rhythm, a reminder of the natural cycles that governed the world. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that his work was a small but meaningful part of that ongoing flow. It was in the quiet labor of shaping the clay, in the patient repetition of each turn of the wheel, that the potter found his place in the world. He was not a man of words or grand gestures. His life was defined by the steady rhythm of his craft, by the slow, quiet act of creation. His hands, worn and calloused from years of work, were the instruments through which the earth was shaped into something beautiful and useful. The potter's thoughts turned to the future. What would become of his craft after he was gone? Would the next generation continue the tradition? Would they take up the wheel and shape the clay as he had done? He had no answers, only a quiet hope that the craft would endure. In the meantime, he continued his work, trusting that the slow, deliberate process of creation was enough. There was no need for recognition or fame. The work, in its simplicity, was its own reward. As the day wore on, the potter's focus never wavered. Each piece he created was a reflection of the care he took in every step of the process. The wheel turned, the clay yielded, and the potter's hands shaped it into something both beautiful and functional. The steady hum of the wheel, the rhythmic sound of the potter's movements, and the distant murmur of the waves outside created a peaceful harmony, one that filled the workshop with a sense of calm purpose. The potter's eyes never strayed far from the clay beneath his fingers. He was absorbed in the work, his mind quiet, his body moving with the natural flow of the task at hand. There was something profoundly meditative about the process, a sense of being fully present in the moment, not worrying about the past or the future, but simply working with the materials in front of him. The simple act of shaping clay into a vessel became a form of meditation, a way to connect deeply with the earth and with the tradition he was part of. As the afternoon wore on and the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the potter's movements grew slower, more deliberate. The shadows in the workshop lengthened, casting a soft glow across the shelves filled with freshly shaped pottery. Each piece, whether a bowl, a jar, or a cup, seemed to capture the essence of the day's work. The potter stepped back for a moment, surveying his work with a quiet satisfaction. There was no need for perfection. Each piece had its own character, shaped by the hands of the potter and the earth from which it came. The potter smiled to himself, content in the knowledge that the work was good, that the rhythm of the day had been honored. In the quiet stillness of the workshop, with the sound of the sea in the background and the soft glow of the evening sun filtering through the open door, the potter felt a deep sense of connection to the world around him. The clay beneath his fingers, the wheel that turned with each steady push, the ocean that stretched endlessly before him, It was all part of a larger cycle, one that he had been part of for so long that it had become second nature. The work would continue as it always had, and the potter would continue to shape the earth, one piece at a time. There was no rush, no need to hurry. The earth, after all, moved at its own pace, and the potter had learned to move with it. Each bowl, each jar, each cup was a testament to the quiet labor of creation, to the patience required to transform raw materials into something useful and beautiful. And as the potter's hands shaped the clay, he knew that his work was a part of something much larger, something that would endure long after he was gone. The work, like the rhythm of the earth, would continue, shaping and reshaping, just as the waves continued to roll onto the shore, year after year, without fail. In that quiet knowledge, the potter found peace. As the sun began its slow descent towards the horizon, casting warm golden light across the coastal village, the potter's hands continued their quiet work, shaping clay with the same careful precision that had defined his craft for years. The soft hum of the spinning wheel filled the air, blending harmoniously with the distant murmur of waves gently crashing against the shore. It was a time of reflection, a moment of peace that seemed to stretch endlessly before him, where the world outside his workshop faded into the background. The potter's gaze shifted to the shelves surrounding him, each one holding a collection of pottery, carefully crafted and now waiting to be fired in the kiln. Each piece, from the simplest bowl to the more intricate vessels, was a reflection of his steady dedication, a quiet testament to the years of work and patience invested in shaping the earth. The air inside the workshop was thick with the earthy scent of damp clay, mingling with the crisp saltiness of the ocean breeze that slipped through the open door. The potter inhaled deeply, feeling the rhythm of his breath align with the turning of the wheel beneath his hands. His fingers worked, with practiced ease, the clay yielding to his touch, responding to the slow, deliberate motions that had become second nature. As the wheel spun, each movement felt like an extension of his own body, his hands moving in perfect harmony with the turning clay. There was no rush in this process, no urgency to complete the work. The potter had learned long ago that true craftsmanship required patience and a willingness to surrender to the flow of the moment. In the stillness of the workshop, with the sounds of the outside world muted by the thick walls and the rhythmic turning of the wheel, the potter found a sense of calm that went beyond the physical act of creation. It was a mental quietude, a peace that came from knowing that his work, though humble, had meaning. Each piece he created would serve its purpose, whether as a bowl for a family's meal, a cup for a quiet moment of reflection, or a jar for storing water or herbs. These simple, everyday objects held within them the story of the potter's life, the rhythm of his labor, and the connection between the earth and those who would use his creations. As the potter's hands shaped the clay, he thought about the many generations that had come before him, the potters who had shaped the same earth and worked with the same materials. There was something deeply comforting about this continuity, the way his hands were part of a long line of artisans who had shared in this same quiet labor. The wheels spun on, and with each turn, the potter felt a connection to the past, to the tradition that had been passed down through the ages. The act of shaping the earth, of transforming raw clay into something useful and beautiful, was timeless. In a world that seemed to change constantly, there was something profoundly grounding in this simple, repetitive task. The village outside was beginning to quiet as the people prepared for the evening. The sounds of children playing by the shore faded into soft conversation, and the occasional call of seabirds returning to their nests echoed in the distance. Yet inside the workshop, the potter's world remained unchanged, rooted in the steady rhythm of his hands on the wheel, the steady hum of the turning clay, and the distant murmur of the ocean. It was in these moments, when the world seemed to slow and time itself appeared to stretch out before him, that the potter felt most at peace. His work, though simple, was a source of deep fulfillment, and he knew that the creations he formed would continue to serve others long after they left his hands. With each piece, he was not just shaping clay. He was shaping a connection to the world around him, to the people who would use his work, and to the earth that provided the materials for his craft. The potter paused for a moment, his hands resting lightly on the nearly finished piece. He wiped the sweat from his brow and looked out towards the sea, where the waves shimmered in the fading light, their endless rhythm a soothing lullaby that seemed to resonate with his own heartbeat. For a moment, the potter simply stood there, taking in the vastness of the world around him. The village, the sea, the sky, all of it felt connected, as if everything existed in perfect harmony. There was no need for words, no need for explanation. The work spoke for itself. The potter's fingers returned to the clay, pressing and shaping, coaxing the material into form. Each movement was slow, deliberate, a reflection of the care he put into every piece. There was a certain beauty in this quiet labor, a beauty that transcended the physical object being created. It was the beauty of the process itself, of the patient, focused effort that went into making something useful and lasting. The evening light was growing softer, casting long shadows across the workshop. The potter's hands continued their work, the steady hum of the wheel blending with the soothing sound of the ocean. He could feel the passage of time in these moments, but it was not a feeling of urgency. Instead, it was a gentle reminder that each day was another opportunity to create, to shape, and to connect. As the last rays of sunlight faded, the potter stood back to admire the work he had completed. Each piece was a quiet triumph, a reflection of the harmony between his hands and the earth. The shelves were filled with the fruits of his labor, each piece waiting to be fired in the kiln. The potter knew that tomorrow would bring more work, more shaping, more turning of the wheel. But for now, he was content. He had created, and in the quiet of the evening, that was enough. The work would continue, as it always had, each piece a testament to the beauty of simple labor and the peace that came from surrendering to the rhythm of the earth. The potter looked out once more at the sea, the gentle waves now reflecting the light of the rising moon. It was a moment of perfect stillness, a moment that seemed to encapsulate everything the potter had learned over the years about patience, about dedication, and about the quiet power of creation. And as the workshop settled into darkness, the potter allowed himself to rest, knowing that tomorrow the wheel would begin to turn again, and the rhythm of creation would continue. As the darkness of night stretched its fingers across the peaceful coastal village, the potter continued his quiet work, his hands steady and sure on the wheel. The soft glow of the single oil lamp cast long shadows across the workshop, its flickering light illuminating the worn wooden shelves lined with freshly shaped pottery, waiting patiently for the kiln. The rhythmic hum of the wheel was the only sound in the room, a sound that seemed to fill the entire space with a sense of calm, as if the very act of shaping clay could silence the noise of the world outside. The potter's hands moved with deliberate care, coaxing the cool, pliable clay into the familiar shapes that would soon become bowls, jars, and cups. There was no rush in this work, no hurry to finish. It was a process that could not be hurried, nor should it be. Each movement was slow and intentional, each touch of his hands a meditation in motion, a quiet expression of his connection to the earth and the materials he worked with. As the wheel turned beneath his hands, the potter's thoughts drifted, moving slowly like the turning of the wheel itself. His mind wandered to the many pieces he had created over the years, each one a reflection of his patience, his dedication, and his love for the craft. He thought of the people who would use his creations, how his bowls would hold the meals of families, how his jars would store precious water and herbs, and how his cups would cradle the quiet moments of reflection that marked the passage of time. The act of shaping these simple objects was not just a task for the potter. It was a way of participating in the rhythms of life, of creating something that would live on in the hands of others. Outside, the village had fallen silent. The soft murmur of waves rolling against the shore was the only sound that reached the potter's ears, a constant reminder of the world beyond his workshop. The moon hung low in the sky, casting its silvery light across the sea, its reflection shimmering like liquid silver on the dark waters. It was a peaceful, serene night, the kind of night where time seemed to stand still, where the world seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the potter and his work. As his hands shaped the clay, he felt a deep sense of peace settle within him. This was his calling, his purpose, this quiet, deliberate work that required nothing more than his full attention and his steady hands. He had always known that his life would be one of simplicity, one of quiet labor, and in that simplicity, he had found contentment. There was no need for grand gestures, no need for recognition or praise. The satisfaction he found in his work was enough. The potter paused for a moment, his hands resting lightly on the almost finished piece in front of him. He wiped the sweat from his brow and glanced out the open doorway, where the sea stretched out before him, dark and vast. The waves continued their slow, rhythmic roll, their movement steady and unceasing, like the passage of time itself. The potter's eyes lingered on the horizon, where the faintest light of the coming dawn was beginning to touch the sky. It was a subtle shift, a quiet promise that the darkness of night would soon give way to the light of day. The potter's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on the nature of time, of creation, and of the quiet, constant rhythm of life. His hands resumed their work, shaping the clay with the same steady rhythm that had become second nature. There was no hurry, no sense of urgency. The wheel turned, the clay yielded to his touch, and the work continued. The potter felt a deep sense of connection to the world around him, to the sea, to the earth, and to the generations of craftsmen who had come before him. He was a part of something much larger than himself, a thread in the tapestry of time that stretched back through the ages. Each piece he created was a link in that chain, a testament to the enduring nature of the craft. The moon was beginning to set, its light fading as the first light of dawn spread across the sky. The potter could see the faintest blush of pink and gold on the horizon, signaling the arrival of a new day. It was a moment of transition, a moment where the night was slowly giving way to the light, where the world was awakening once again. The potter's hands slowed, and for a moment he simply sat in the stillness of his workshop, watching the sunrise. The warmth of the first light of dawn spilled into the room, casting a soft glow across the workshop and illuminating the pottery on the shelves. The work was far from finished, but the potter felt a deep sense of satisfaction in what had been accomplished. The wheel would continue to turn, the clay would continue to be shaped, and life would continue its quiet, rhythmic flow. But for now, there was peace in the stillness, peace in the quiet of the moment. As the potter stood and stretched, he knew that another day of work awaited him. There was always more to be done, more pieces to shape, more clay to turn. But for now, as the light of dawn brightened the sky, he allowed himself to rest in the simple beauty of the present moment. There would be time enough for the rest of the work later. For now, he was content. The world would turn, the waves would roll, and the potter would continue his quiet labor, shaping the earth with his hands and participating in the timeless rhythm of creation. With one last glance at the sea, the potter returned to his work, knowing that with each turn of the wheel, he was part of something much larger than himself, something that had endured for generations and would continue long after his hands had stopped turning the clay. The cycle would continue, as it always had, and the potter would be there, shaping the earth one piece at a time for as long as the world turned. As the first light of dawn slowly filtered into the potter's workshop, casting a soft golden glow across the humble space, the potter found himself once again at the wheel. The sea outside was calm, its endless rhythm continuing, unchanging, as it had for centuries. He could hear the faint murmur of the waves rolling in on the shore, a soothing reminder of the world beyond his quiet sanctuary. The air was filled with the familiar sense of damp clay, salt, and earth, mixing together into an aroma that had become as comforting to him as the turning of the wheel itself. The potter's hands moved with the same steady rhythm they always had, pressing and shaping the cool, pliable clay into form with practiced ease. There was nothing new about the work itself, bowls, jars, cups, but today, as he shaped the final piece, something felt different. The air in the workshop seemed to hum with the weight of the moment, as if the very earth beneath his feet was holding its breath in anticipation. His fingers traced the contours of the clay, pulling it upward and outward, coaxing it into shape, just as he had done countless times before. Yet, as he worked, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment, as if this particular piece, this final creation, held within it everything he had learned, everything he had been. Each turn of the wheel, each press of his fingers, was a reflection of his years of experience, of the quiet dedication he had poured into his craft. The potter's thoughts wandered as he worked, reflecting on the many years he had spent in this very workshop, creating pieces that would serve others. He thought of the families who had used his bowls to hold their meals, the hands that had grasped his cups during quiet moments of reflection, the jars that had stored precious water and herbs. His work had been a part of their daily lives, woven into the fabric of their existence. Yet, as he worked on this last piece, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace, knowing that he had given everything he could to this craft, to this way of life. He was content. The wheel spun steadily beneath his hands, the clay yielding to his touch with the same obedient softness it always had. There was no need for perfection. The beauty of the work was not in the flawless execution, but in the process itself. Each piece, in its imperfection, told a story of patience, of time spent shaping, of the slow, deliberate rhythm of creation. The potter smiled as he thought of the many generations of craftsmen who had come before him, each one adding their own story to the lineage of the craft. He was a part of something much larger than himself, a thread in a tapestry that had been woven over centuries. With each piece, he had added his mark, his contribution to the ongoing story of creation. As the final creation took shape beneath his hands, the potter felt a sense of closure. This was the last piece he would make, the last work he would shape with these hands. It was a bittersweet moment, but one filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. His life had been a quiet one, shaped by the turning of the wheel, and now, at the end of his journey, he felt a profound sense of peace. The potter paused for a moment, his hands resting lightly on the finished vessel. He looked out toward the open door, where the sea stretched out before him, vast and endless. The sun was rising higher now, casting its golden light across the water, creating a shimmering path that stretched all the way to the horizon. The potter could feel the warmth of the sun on his face, and for a moment he simply stood there, taking it all in. The world was quiet, still, and yet full of life. It was a moment of perfect harmony, where everything seemed to align his work. The earth, the sea, the sky. This final piece, this last creation, was not just a physical object. It was a symbol, a culmination of a lifetime of work, of dedication, of connection to the earth and to the rhythms of nature. It was a reflection of everything he had been, everything he had learned, and everything he had shared with the world through his craft. As the potter placed the final creation on the shelf with the others, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the clay, for the wheel, for the craft that had sustained him for so many years. Gratitude for the peaceful life he had lived, for the quiet rhythms of his work, and for the simple beauty that had filled each day. The potter took one last look around the workshop, where the shelves were lined with the fruits of his labor. Each piece, each bowl, each jar, each cup had its own story, its own place in the world. And now, the final creation, the last piece. He would shape, would join them. The potter stepped away from the wheel, his work complete. He felt a deep sense of peace as he stood there, surrounded by the quiet stillness of the workshop, the sound of the waves outside, and the soft glow of the dawn. The work was done, and with it, his journey had come full circle. He had shaped the earth, molded it with his hands, and in doing so, had shaped his own life. It was time for the potter to rest, to let go of the wheel, and allow the rhythms of life to continue on their own. The earth would continue to turn, the waves would continue to roll, and the craft would carry on, passed down to the next generation. And as the potter walked out of the workshop and into the light of the new day, he felt a sense of contentment, knowing that his work had been a part of something much larger than himself. His hands had shaped the earth, but it was the earth that had shaped him. The cycle would continue, as it always had, and the potter's legacy would live on, carried forward in the quiet rhythm of creation.